Good afternoon, and welcome back to the Committee on Ways and Means. We will go back and start on our third revision of our agenda for the day. And our first bill on the agenda is Assembly Bill 119, which creates the Vulnerable Adult Fatality Review Committee. And this was a product of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Judiciary. The bill came through the Committee on Health and Human Services. Good afternoon. You can come on up to the table, Doctor. No. Hey. Thank you.
David Orentlicker, Assembly District 20 for the record. Assembly Bill 119 creates a Vulnerable Adult Fatality Review Committee along the lines we already have for child fatalities. And the idea is to study when there's maltreatment of an adult to make sure we can develop policies to protect our vulnerable adults. There was a fiscal because of the role for the Attorney General's office in implementing some of the policy. Excuse me. The conceptual amendment redefines the AG's role to make it more appropriate and removes the fiscal.
Perfect. And that amendment that you're referring to, is it this conceptual amendment that we received that just did some policy changes, not necessarily fiscal changes, correct?
That's correct.
Perfect. Members, you should have on Nellis the amendment, and you have the bill and the fiscal aspects of the bill. By the looks of all of the fiscal notes I have in hand, all have a $0 fiscal impact. Any questions for Assemblyman Orentlicker? Seeing none? All right.
Thank you.
That was super easy. Go ahead and take a seat. Is there anyone here that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 119? Not seeing anyone here in Carson City. Is there anyone in Las Vegas that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 119? Not seeing anyone come to the table. BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone lines that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 119?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 119, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we will move to opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 119? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone at our table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 119?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 119, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Lisa Partee. Last name is spelled P as in Paul, A-R-T as in Tom, E-E. I just want to oppose this bill, AB 119. We have such a top-heavy government right now. We do not need to create yet another agency or committee and impact us more physically. This session has been nothing about anything but impacting us fiscally. So please vote no on AB 119. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller?
Casey Rogers for the record. I just would echo what Lisa Partee just said and oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller?
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 119? Not seeing any. Is there anyone in Las Vegas? And don't see anyone coming to the table. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 119?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, we'll ask the presenter if you have any closing comments. All right. So with that, members, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 119. And because this is a fiscal committee and the fiscal on this bill are all zero, we can go ahead and work session this bill. So I will open the work session on Assembly Bill 119 and entertain a motion to do pass.
Madam Chair, I'd move to do pass as amended Assembly Bill 119.
We have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus. A motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus and a second from Assemblywoman Hadigi to amend and do pass. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman Hayford.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Being that this is the fiscal committee and the fiscal notes have been removed, I will vote yes to get it out of committee, but I will be reserving my right on the floor as I do have some concerns over the policy.
Thank you so much for that. The same, is that a ditto from you? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Ditto. Members, we're going to rescind that motion.
Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and rescind my motion to do pass as amended.
And your second?
Will second.
I'll go ahead and move to amend and do pass as amended Assembly Bill 119.
Thank you so much for that correction. Any other discussion? Not really. All right. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously of the members present. And again, we will give all the work sessions to myself, all the floor statements to myself. The next bill on our agenda is Assembly Bill 138, which provides Medicaid coverage for certain types of behavioral health integration services. And we'll welcome Ms. Bells to the table. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Jeanette Bells, Jeanette. Thank you so much. I am infinitely grateful for the opportunity to present AB 138 today on behalf of Shatterproof, which is a national not-for-profit dedicated to reversing the addiction crisis in our nation. And I'm especially delighted to do that today because today is the last day of Mental Health Awareness Month. This bill came from the Interim Committee on Healthcare. Briefly, AB 138 requires the state plan for Medicaid to include behavioral health integration models such as collaborative care as part of its covered services. The collaborative care model is an effective way to provide integrated and comprehensive care to patients with mental health conditions. It provides reimbursement for a team-based approach that involves the patient's primary care provider, a care coordinator, and a consulting mental health provider, generally a psychiatrist or an addiction medicine specialist. This allows patients to receive coordinated mental health care in the setting that they're most familiar with, their primary care provider. I would like to thank Stacy Weeks from the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy for diligently and patiently working with us to address the fiscal note that the department submitted on February 9th. Before we discuss the fiscal note, I just wanted to let you know that there is an amendment that was submitted to the committee, and that delayed the implementation date to July 1, 2024. And based on that, the department revised that fiscal note downward. And I am hoping that someone will confirm that from the department.
Thank you so much. Do we have anyone here from Healthcare Financing and Policy? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. For the record, Lynette Aaron with the Division of Healthcare Financing and Policy. So with the amendment to delay the effective date to July 1, 2024, the division can revise our fiscal note. So the total cost for the biennium will now be $659,445, including $212,073 in general funds.
And can you give me the general fund total just one more time?
Sure. It's $212,073.
Perfect. Thank you. Members, any questions for the presenter or the department about the fiscal note? And my question for the department, with that 212, will you be able to absorb that cost?
No, unfortunately, we will not be able to absorb those costs. Lynette Aaron for the record.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, we do have an amendment on the bill, an amended fiscal note. So with that, I would accept a motion to amend and do pass and add the amount. Oh, that's true. Yeah. Can you tell I'm tired? Okay. The power drink hasn't kicked in yet. All right. No. Not that tired. With that, I thank you both for the presentation, and we'll invite anyone up that would like to testify in support for Assembly Bill 138.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I was ready for that work session. That was great. Leah Case, on behalf of the Nevada Psychiatric Association, just to let you know, we have two members who are heavily invested in this bill, who currently run programs that will be impacted by this, and they're using grant funds and just patching the funding together. That is the Pediatric Access Line. That's where a pediatrician can do a phone consultation with a child and adolescent psychiatrist specialist to do accurate prescribing. And then there is the High Risk Pregnancy Center, and they help pregnant people who are maybe living with a substance use disorder or an alcohol use disorder while they're pregnant, and this helps them maintain a healthy pregnancy. Again, both of those are currently using grant funds, and turning on these collaborative care funds will help make those programs sustainable and get healthy moms, babies, and children. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Barry Cole, B-A-R-R-Y-C-O-L-E, colleague of Ms. Case. We were at a conference in October in St. Paul, Minneapolis, where this model was being really rolled out and presented at a national level. Not only is the Nevada Psychiatric Association in full support, Interestingly, so is the American Psychiatric Association. So this will be a way to extend mental health services to more people. And as we end Mental Health Awareness Month, access to care is so important. So I urge support for AB 138. Thanks.
Thank you. See no one else here in Carson City to provide testimony and support, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony and support of Assembly Bill 138?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 138, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So coming back to Carson City, is there anyone that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 138? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone at our table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 138?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 138, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Then we will come to the neutral position back here in Carson City. Is there anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 138? Not seeing anyone, and not seeing anyone at the table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 138?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 138, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So with that, we will ask the presenters, do you have any closing remarks? Sounds good. We will then close the hearing on Assembly Bill 138, and we will open the work session for Assembly Bill 138. And members, you've heard through the testimony, there is an amendment on the bill that changes the date for implementation, which affected the fiscal note. And so we will need to authorize the $659,445 and appropriate the $212, $212.73 for the general fund. I hope you guys understood that. And with that, I'll accept a motion to amend and do pass.
Madam Chair, I'd move to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 138.
Second.
We have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Assemblywoman Hodeggy. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next on our agenda is Assembly Bill 216, which revises provisions governing travel insurance, and we invite Assemblywoman Gorlow to the table.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am pleased to present Assembly Bill 216. After the first reprint, the Department of Taxation has determined that the fiscal note should be removed. So we've got zero fiscal note. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you. Members, any questions for Assemblywoman Gorlow on Assembly Bill 216? There are no fiscal notes on this bill. No questions? Okay, thank you so much. We'll invite anyone to the table that would like to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 216. Not seeing anyone here in Las Vegas. in Carson City and not seeing anyone at our table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 216?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 216, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much, and we'll move to opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 216? Not seeing any and not seeing anyone at our room in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 216?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 216, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So coming back to Carson City, do we have anyone here that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 216? Not seeing any and still not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 216?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 216, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much for that. So we'll ask the presenter if you have any closing remarks. Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 216. And we will open the work session for 216. And with that, I will accept motion to do pass as amended.
Madam Chair, I'd move to do pass as amended Assembly Bill 216.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Assemblywoman Hadigi. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposition? The motion carries unanimous of the members present. And we're going to take a 1-minute recess just to switch places really quick.
We'll call this meeting back to order, and with that, we'll open the hearing on Assembly Bill 519. And I will go ahead and invite Chair Monroe Marino and any of the co-presenters, including Chair Mason, up to the podium. And please feel free to begin when you're ready. And for those that are watching, this is a little different. It's not just a fiscal. This is also a policy, not briefing, but a policy presentation as well.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. My name is Danielle Monroe Moreno, and I represent Assembly District 1, which is in Clark County. I am so happy to present to you today Assembly Bill 519. This bill makes desperately needed appropriations to support capital projects for Nevada school districts while establishing a new provision that governs county funds for capital projects. Most notably, this bill includes an appropriation of $64,000.5 million, to the Elko County School District for the construction of a new school to replace the Oahe Combined School. I think I probably scared you when I said that, huh? Yeah, sorry.
For the record, it is what, 64.5 million?
And I have joining me, before we get into the bill summary, I'd like my co-presenters to go ahead and present themselves, since it is our bill presentation on the bill and the fiscal aspects of it. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. My name is Brian Mason, and I have the honor of being the chairman of the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. And I deeply appreciate the Assembly Bill 519 that is before you today. So the bill does a lot of things in an amazing ways. I've read it, I've looked at it, other people have looked at it. It's gone up and down, and so far I haven't heard anything bad. Well, that's not true. I did hear one thing bad, and I guess I have to explain that and put it in context. So the one thing that I heard negative was the individual who was an official, not here, in a county, and I won't name the county, to protect the individual's stupidity. But so he argued that why would the state of Nevada spend money on a school that's on tribal land when they don't pay property tax? And so the simple answer to that is, even in this year of 2023, tribal members living on reservation land cannot own property. And that's a fact, even in 2023. So that's at no fault of our own. It's simply the law. So I appreciate, the fact that the committee has found a mechanism to replace a school that is literally falling apart. So this does that. And I appreciate all the hard work that so many people have put into this. And I thank you.
Briefly, I'm Will Adler with the Silver State Government Relations team. We were representing the Duck Valley Indian Reservation this whole session, and it has been a long and arduous process to get to this point, but I want to thank everyone at the Assembly Ways and Means Committee for hearing this bill today, and all those who got this bill to where it is, including Alexis Hansen for introducing the first measure to get the attention there. But I really want to thank Chair Danielle Monroe for the time she spent on this, and the measures before you is one of a lot of compromise and a lot of negotiating and a lot of love. And I think it is going to do a lot of things for the state of Nevada. So if there's any questions after going through the bill and the presentation, I'd love to walk through the sections and sort of the reasoning behind them and what they intend to do and what they shall do going forward in the state of Nevada for not just Native American students, but really rural Nevada as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Danielle Monroe Moreno for the record. Just to give you a little concept of why we're here, because this is a big ask, right? The Oahe Combined School is located on the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation in northeastern Nevada. The conditions of the school are just completely unacceptable and putting the health and education of Nevadans at risk. It has become so severe that school administrators reported bat feces dropping from the ceilings. This appropriation is critical to give the people of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation a school that they deserve. The bill also makes two appropriations of $25 million to the newly created account to assist rural school districts in financing capital improvements. The first appropriation is for funding grants to school districts, and the second is for grants for capital projects on qualified tribal lands. You may ask, why two? Well, my research of this bill and my conversations with our congressional delegation, there's actually a federal fund available for states that have dedicated funding for tribal schools. The state of Nevada never had that, so that's dollars that we have been missing for a number of years. So by passing this piece of legislation, yes, it's a big ask now, but it will bring in many dollars in the future to help our schools. This new fund will help provide support to our rural school districts to ensure that we do not see schools deteriorate to the level that Owyhee Combined Schools has. The bill also requires the Elko County Board of Commissioners to levy a tax at a rate of not less than 1 cent and not more than 25 cents on each $100 of assessed valuation of taxable property. This money must be deposited in the county treasurer to be directed to the fund for the capital projects. Similarly, any board of county commissioners whose population is less than 100,000 may levy a tax required to fund a capital project for their school districts. I thank Assemblywoman Hanson for bringing forth the initial bill, but I felt we should be doing more. We had a fund for rural schools that for years have been sitting there and wasn't being utilized. I found a way to not only utilize that fund, but to expand that fund so we take care of all of our schools, no matter where they're located, but especially our schools on our tribal land. When we think about it, we're all guests here on their land. And it's time for us to step up and do the right thing by our tribal members. But their children are our futures just like all of our children, and they deserve to go to school in a healthy school. And this will get us there. And I also want to thank some of our mining communities, our resort communities, and others, because the way this fund is set up, it can take grants, donations, and contributions. So I see this as the first step to solving a number of problems in our state when it comes to our tribal schools. So with that, Madam Chair, we will stand for questions.
Well, first, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank Chair Monroe Marino for bringing this and being our kind of star when it comes to grant money and finding those extra federal funds. But I know a lot of people are watching, and it is a big ask. And I know there's a lot more that has been struggling with that property, including it being a used building before it was relocated to Duck Valley Reservation. And so either I would have Mr. Adler or Chair Mason elaborate on some other things. I know we know about the bats that hang in there, and when it rains, the feces come through the ceiling, and some of the classrooms are the kitchen or the home ec room. And so if you guys can give a little more explanation, also talk about some of the other issues, or are you going to have other people appear?
Madam Vice Chair, this is Assemblywoman Monroe Marino. We have the principal at the school on Zoom. If we could have her speak to the conditions of the school, that'd be great.
That would be fantastic.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Vice Chair, committee members. My name is Lynn Manning John. I am a citizen of the Duck Valley Shoshone Paiute tribe and a resident of Owyhee, Nevada, located on the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. My formal education as a kindergarten student began at Owyhee Combined School. I graduated from this school in 1994. Both of my parents graduated from this school, and my eldest daughter is set to graduate from here in less than 2 weeks. I have other children that are in grades 11 through 1, all of them here. My mom is a former teacher, my dad is a former bus driver, and I am now the vice principal, having been an administrator in both Clark and Washoe County school districts prior to returning home to the school and community that has educated 3 generations of my family over a span of 65 years, with many more on the horizon. The situation at the school can best be described in 2 categories: facilities and location. The first issue with our facility is inequity. Our facility lacks basic amenities that are standard in schools within our district and the state, including lacking certain ADA accommodations. The amenities that we do have are old, often out of order and beyond their useful life. Some aspects of the school are literally crumbling. Our location is unsafe. The front doors are 100 feet from a major highway. Full glass and fully accessible doors are open to passing motorists and, unfortunately, anyone with ill intentions. A city street bisects our campus with no designated or safe student spaces to pass between periods or gather during lunches. Our campus is directly adjacent to and sits directly on a hydrocarbon plume. This is a situation that has developed over the last 70 years that the school has been in existence. In 2023, these circumstances are unacceptable. We are 9 teachers short going into the 2023-24 school year. We need a school that can both attract and retain highly qualified licensed teachers. I'd like to thank Assembly Ways and Means Committee and Chair Danielle Monroe Moreno for hearing us, the citizens and residents of the Shoshone-Paiute tribes of the Duck Valley Indian Reservation, and the past, current, and future staff and students of Owyhee Combined School for the future of our tribe and state of Nevada. Further, we are asking for the unanimous support of the legislature in passing AB 519 and pray that Governor Lombardo signs the bill into law. I echo Chairman Mason in his appreciation of the work it took to get us here, including the work of Assemblywoman Hansen and Senator Hansen for their support.
Thank you so much for that, Lynn. And your daughter, Ziavi, has been such a good advocate here in this building as well. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and present questions to the individuals. Unless, did you want to, Mr. Adler, talk about the amendment?
Yes, briefly, Will Adler for the record with Silver State Government Relations. 2 things. I would like to go to the amendment proposed by Ken Higby of the Elko County School District, and we can go through that and sort of the pieces of it. Today, it looks like the Section 6 addition is really the core of what will be added from the amendment to the bill. But it is worthy of discussion, and it is leading into sort of a discussion about the bill as a whole. So if we could reference the amendment just briefly, Section 6 now has a new sub 6 to it. That new sub 6 was created as a 2-part procedural thing. When these counties enter an agreement to start having a local tax levied upon themselves that they collect at this local level, there was 2 things kind of missing or maybe needed. Additional public input and having that ability to have a sounding board where the community knows where these revenues are going, how they're collected, and what they're being spent on was very valid and kind of a needed thing to have the comfort of rural counties and other counties, raised. But secondarily, what's going to happen to these accounts once they start collecting money and when the revenue does start coming in? There wasn't really a trigger mechanism where tribal communities or the general public or counties who are building other additional schools had a place to say, okay, we've collected this amount of funds, let's spend it on this and now and how. So having that public board, having it be based around the county commission, the school district, and having, a small membership that is locally based, I think would work in almost any county that implemented one of these. There is a tribal member included on that. I think almost any county that would go into this would have a tribal community they can invite to be a member of one of these boards when implemented. And it wouldn't necessarily have to be when they're building a tribal school either. It could just be whenever they enter one of these agreements. Also invite a tribal member to partake from a local tribal community would be a good mechanism to keep this a functional mechanism going into time, because a lot of people agree with the need for additional revenues and collection of those revenues for infrastructure for schools, especially in rural Nevada. But a lot of people also want their hands around it and to know how that's going to work and how they're going to be involved with it publicly. So that's really the purpose of Section 6, and it does add a little bit of a needed element. And then maybe to cut off a couple questions, I would like to maybe go through the bill just briefly to sort of get the linkage to the sections where they belong, possibly, if that is okay with you. So briefly, Section 1 is just a reference section, but Section 2 is the new language that really gets into the bill. Section 2, if you look at it, is very explicit, and it does link the shall language and the mandate of it only to one county, and explicitly one county by population that happens to be Elko County. I'll say it right here on the record. But it does say that this commission has the ability to levy a 1 to 25 cent tax of their own choosing to enter into this account. Elko shall do this in this way in Section 2 for the purpose of raising funds for spending them on explicitly tribal lands. I would like to sort of say Section 2 links the bill actually to Section 10. So if you look at Section 10, Nevada is appropriating $64.5 million, for the record, to Elko County School District for the building of and maintenance of the Owyhee School. A lot of construction projects have overages. A lot of projects don't end up with 100% of the budget accounted for at the beginning of it. Today, that is our best guess, and that came out of Elko County School District as the budget for what it would take to build a new school at Owyhee. It was $77 million. The tribe can put up so much. The state's filling in the rest with $64.5 million. But Section 2 of the bill is going to create an account where the county can then start passing their own bonds, figure out an amount, 1 to 25 cents that works for them, to start saving up money in their own account, in their own treasury. That money can then be used or applied against the money available in Section 9 of the bill, which is funds that can be used for rural school use and $25 million for additional tribal school use. As I read it, and as I think the interpretation should be kind of clear, Section 2 is a mandate on Elko County to make one of these accounts, to start accruing that money. But that money could have a tangible use in the near future if the cost of building out the Owyhee school has an overage and it does go over. They will then have funds saved up already that they can apply to making sure this school gets completed, and there is no idea that the state of Nevada would have to come back and also complete that final piece of it. So I do think that the cost of the school is encompassed in this bill. I do think it is there. But I do think this is a very prudent measure to put in place to say, we're paying for a school, but we want to make sure it gets done, and the funds will be there to finish it as well. So I do think this is a very well thought out, sort of prudent measure that links Elko to the funds received in Section 10. Then to separate those two sections from the rest of the bill, because I think that is kind of important, Section 3 on down creates a statewide mechanism that'll go on continuing into the future, but it is one that any county, population 100,000 or less, can enter in an agreement to self-levy a similar tax upon their own property, 1 to 25 cents, again for the purpose of collecting funds to build a school. And it doesn't actually have to be a tribal school, to be clear. This is allowable for any school across the district. So similar cases would be White Pine County and other places where they're at their bond cap and they have issues going forward and getting that financing directly. The rest of the bill is somewhat self-explanatory, and there are maybe a couple questions here or there, but 3 really sets up that new mechanism. 4 has the state account that will match some of the funds and how those funds can be accessed. And then really going back through it goes into the appropriation pieces of it that come around with Section 9 and 10. The only other thing to say linkage-wise to Section 2 and the Elko County portion of this is Section 8. Does say if they do not choose to go into a taxable agreement themselves or put the 1 to 25 cent tax or bond in place, that a 25-cent tax shall be levied upon them in the same way they could have chosen to 1 year later if it has not been put in place by that year. So that is the core of the bill. It does have a lot of structure to it, but it sets up a very in-depth, forward-looking structure for really fixing some hard-to-fix issues in rural Nevada where school financing and funding is very limited, especially on a per-pupil basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Adler, so just to clarify, when you're looking at the conceptual amendment, you started talking about Section 6, I believe. Is that the only portion of that amendment that is a friendly amendment?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Vice Chair. Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record, yes. As you look at the conceptual amendment, there were 3 bullet points. I am not accepting bullet point 1 or bullet point 2, but will accept bullet point 3. And this was not typed up or created by an attorney. It was by the Director of Special Services with Elko County School District. So it's not in legalese. So we can have a mock-up presented to the committee to get it to legalese if you don't like the way it's written right now. But that is the only part that is a friendly amendment.
Thank you so much. With that, I apologize, I jumped to questions. Are you all done with your presentation? Perfect. With that, we'll go ahead and start. I'll start with Mr. Assemblyman Hafen.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And Vice Chair, I have to say thank you to you, Assemblywoman Hanson, and everyone that was involved in this. I know from day one this has been a very difficult conversation. We're talking about a substantial amount of money, and so to put the work in to solve this is huge. And I'm getting goosebumps because what I love is how you expanded this, and you're saying that we're going to go over and above. We're going to actually fund the account to assist rural school districts, and I think this is going to be a huge benefit to all the rural counties, so I cannot say thank you enough. And then now that I've thanked you enough, I will jump into my question, which goes to Section 10. And I just want to make sure that I'm fully understanding Section 10, subsection 3, where we're referring that the remaining balances would be reverted back to the state general fund. And I just want to confirm that that's not going to be the new taxes that are going into the assisted rural school district account, and that we're referring to the state general fund reversion would only be the portion that was of the 64.5 million. And I just want to make sure that I understand.
Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record, that is correct. That's only referring to the $64.5 million that was appropriated.
And I will thank you one more time. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you so much. Next, we will go to Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Chair, for bringing forward this great language. My question is for actually Chairman Mason, if I may. And it is not directly related to the language that's in the bill. It has more to do with possible processes that I've heard about over the last few years. I think others in education have as well. The school will be on tribal land, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. So I just, my question has to do with the relationship and or the way discussions are held between the tribal nation and the school board that oversees this. If there are differences of opinion, how is that being handled? Because yes, this is about the money, but this is also about the policy committee, I believe, because I don't believe it's being heard anyplace else. So I just was wondering how you are planning on handling if there are differences of opinion and also differences of how things are taught. Because from some of the things I've heard, there have been some issues sometimes with school districts, not always, or school board trustees, not always respecting differences of opinion.
So that's a good question, and I'd love to answer it, and I'll get into it. My name is Brian Mason, for the record, and I'm the chairman of the Shoshone-Paiute Tribes. So in the past years, it may have been difficult, but it is getting better, and that's with just constant communication with the school district itself. So if you can imagine, it was at since 1995, I believe, the school district levied an English-only policy where tribal members could not speak their own language. And that affected staff, janitors, kids, because kids would go home and talk Shoshone or Paiute to their parents, grandparents. And then if they went back to the school, they were disciplined. Same with the janitors. If they were talking Shoshone or Paiute to their nephews, kid, daughter, son, they were disciplined as well. So it hasn't always been good, but like I said, it's getting better. It's now professional working relationship. We're self-governance since 1994, so we are growing our own. We're growing our own educators, our own administrators, like Lynn John. We can only be optimistic about the situation. So I think we're fine. I mean, so it is on tribal land. We do a lease with the school district. And, we've already dedicated that lease to be $1 a year for the next 20 years. So.
And thank you for that clarification. And thank you, Chair and Vice Chair, for allowing me to ask it, because I know that has been possibly one reason why some of the schools in the disarray it currently is because of a lack of respect of differences. So my other question does also have to do with, in particular, I will now use the language, and so I don't know if this would be to Chair Monroe Moreno or if it would be to Mr. Adler, has to do with Section 4. If you could kind of explain that a little bit about the administration of the money when it has to do with in line 18, that the money would be put into the state treasurer's account and then it would be administered by the director. Does that mean that the money it would be approval first, or is that process something that would be, the regulations would be discussed as listed under further in section 5.5?
Will Adler, for the record. It may be more appropriate to ask the state treasurer's office how they interpret doing this, but how I have been told by them, this at least, is that there will be a statewide account for the housing of the funds received in Section 9, if we want to sort of point at it, where you would end up with $50 million, 25 dedicated for tribal-based school building, 25 for other rural schools to date. But the mechanism is sort of a match grant, if you want to think about it, where as they acquire or come into a plan to accumulate funds under Section 3 of the bill, where a local county goes into the taxing of themselves, as I read it, the treasurer then has a granting mechanism where, as they, I assume, have figured out the timeline when the funds would be acquired from that tax, the treasurer would then come to agreement when the grant or what the match would be. Again, I don't want to speak too thoroughly for the treasurer's office. I didn't see them in the room, though.
Thank you for going through that process. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And we will now go to Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. And like everyone else, we are so appreciative of this bill coming forward. It was very heartbreaking hearing from staff and tribal members, and especially the students coming into our office and telling us about all the issues that are going on with the school. So first, I want to tell you that in my conversation with some of the students, I asked them what they would like in their new school, and they said a track. So if you can do a track where animals aren't crawling across it, because they had mentioned that there were some cows apparently that like to roam the track and the football field, and I guess there was also a mountain lion that was hanging out one Friday evening when they were having a football game. So I told them I would advocate for that for them. But my question, do we have a timeline on when this school would be open, and how many students would it have the capacity would be for? Thank you.
I could speak to that with some, construction background on major projects at, both at active mines in the state of Nevada, and actually in communities where I worked with Barrick as the government relations with the tribes, and we would go to tribes and build different buildings such as senior centers, community centers, and that kind of stuff. So realistically, the tribe is pretty optimistic, and so we've already started. We started with the initial ground surveys, the initial studies that you're going to need. We're in contact with the National Guard and Air Force that are going to do some of the leveling, and all these things that we're doing right now are upfront costs, that are going to, assist in taking some of the bite out of the end costs, which we're referring to as in kind, that we're doing upfront. But we're hoping that it's going to be done in 2 years, and that's not a big stretch. I mean, I built a large senior center up in Oahe when I was with Barrick, and that took like maybe 6 months. And it was a little bit smaller, but that's all it took. So if all the timelines and logistics, we've already been talking with the architect that is probably going to design it, and working with them. We've worked with them before. That's the one that Elko County School District works with as well. So, realistically, we're looking at about 2 construction seasons, and we're not counting this year as a construction season. We're going to do all the infrastructure work going in, and then hopefully it's done before my term is up, and that's in 3 years. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we will go to Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And I love this. I think it's brilliant. I'm very excited for it. I had a question, though, related to the oversight panel, and it's a legal question. It's just over my head on quorum for this panel and whether the public meeting law applies to it. And the reason I ask is because we've had several hearings this session about the difficulty it is in appointing folks who will show up to some of these meetings. So I just am curious about like the intent for this panel to be subject to open meeting law and that structure, and then potentially whether there's some potential opportunity to put some flexibility in here to make sure that they're like these positions are fillable in the event that we can't get the right people in them or the people we imagine, in them, but ensure we can make sure they can do the work.
Will Adler for the record. Thank you, Assemblyperson Peters. I do believe more flexibility, the better. This was sort of a reduced accountability panel that was similar to the Washoe County School District's one where they did SOS. So that one seemed to be a little too heavy for a rural school district, too many members, too much participation. So I did want to pare it down to something manageable. As far as Section 3 of the Section Sub 6.6, I do agree that in a lot of cases, there might not be a tribal community in that county that does want to participate in a school issue. Some of them are smaller. Some don't actually have their own dedicated schools. So additional flexibility added to that language would be all the better. And I do envision it being a public meeting or maybe something that could be held before or after a school board meeting, as it is somewhat linked to the school board and their practices as well. But beefing that language up would be great. And I do believe Mr. Higbee would agree with making it as legally sound or permissible as possible. But having a public meeting once a quarter doesn't seem too onerous, but it does, having it have a public meeting gives it a place for the public of that county to know what's going on here. So I did envision it being public. Thank you.
Danielle Monroe Moreno for the record. And just to piggyback off of what Mr. Adler said, I think, the community, we have, 27, 28 tribes in the state of Nevada that haven't always been welcomed and invited to have a voice and have a seat at the table. I think having people fill these positions will be so much easier because now we've provided that invitation. Hey, we want you to be a part of the discussion about how to make your community, which is all of our communities, a little better.
I want to clarify that the complaint has come about from local governments not showing up to these meetings. And how can we make sure that there's flexibility in who they appoint to or who gets appointed to these committees that can represent the local governments? But I agree with you that the invitation and mandate that there is a member that is representative of a tribal community is important because otherwise it often gets overlooked. So I appreciate that.
Danielle Monroe Moreno, for the record. And, now that we all know about the situations at some of our schools in our rural communities, on our tribal schools, we all have a responsibility as elected officials to make sure that the legislation that we enact gets followed. And I know I'm committed to making sure, and I think I can speak for Assemblywoman Hanson. She'll be out there making sure that it's taken care of as well.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Assemblyman Miller.
Thank you. Again, I can't echo enough ditto to many of my colleagues' comments about how great this is. So the excitement of a new school, right? We got a new school, new building, all the bells and whistles hopefully will be there. I have a kind of a two-part question. During the build out of the new school, I know the principal mentioned and yourself, Chair Monroe Moreno, mentioned several, of the issues with the current building. Are there going to be repairs able to be done in the meantime while we're waiting for the school to be built out? And secondly, what happens to the old school when the new school gets filled?
Lynn, John, can you speak to that, talking about some of the ideas that you had earlier on?
Yes. So first off, regarding the current situation and any needed repairs, the district is already taking steps to address some of our glass issues and the bat issue. And we've had a ton of rain today, so I don't want to go in that classroom, but I'll check it out before I leave today. But we are every day working to address the needed repairs. it's a lot, but it's eating an elephant, but we do it every day. As far as the structure itself, it is owned by the Elko County School District. It was transferred to the Elko County School District from the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the 1950s. So it is real property of the district. The district's intentions, I cannot speak to. However, in the instance it comes back to the tribe, I've had some thoughts about what it could be. It could be a business incubator, it could be a cultural center. We are right on the highway. It could be a great tourism space. I know the Nevada Indian Commission works with tribal communities in creating tourism on tribal lands. That could be an aspect. I've thought about a tribal college or a technical school or an alternative school. I am a popcorn machine of ideas. It is a good building. It's an old building. It is not sufficient for a school for children, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have a purpose. I know that having been a Las Vegas resident, there is a tendency to want to knock something down and just start fresh. At the same time, I know in Reno, that Mapes Hotel that used to sit along the Truckee, I was sure sad to see that go, because there are some beautiful historic buildings, and this is one of them. I'm seated in here now, and it does have a use after it's no longer a K-12 school. And Dr. Higbee, I believe, is present in the audience, and he may be able to speak to that as well. He is the Director of Special Services for the school district.
Well, I think that was good enough. I do hope that the district, sends the school back, because everybody loves popcorn, and those were some great ideas. Thank you.
Committee members, do we have any other questions for our presenters? With that, we'll have our presenters take a step back here in Carson City, and we will go ahead and take testimony in support of Assembly Bill 519. So those wishing to give testimony, please come to the podium. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association. We're just going to say me too to everything else. This is a great bill. We would urge your support. Thank you.
I'll be a little bit more verbose. Madam Chair, members of the committee, my name is Christina Erling. I am Vice President of Government Affairs for Barrick. Barrick operates Nevada gold mines with our JV partner Newmont. We appreciate the opportunity to express our support for AB 519. At Nevada Gold Mines, we recognize that we have an obligation to be responsible stewards of the environment, good neighbors, and dedicated community partners. To achieve this, we proactively look for opportunities to partner and engage with our host communities, including our Native American partner tribes, to address community needs in a sustainable and adaptable way. Our approach to successfully partnering with our communities is simple. We foster solid, long-term relationships with community stakeholders that are built upon trust, transparency, and respect. We were honored to support members of the Duck Valley Shoshone-Paiute tribe for their trip here in April to advocate for the new school. We are dedicated to the long-time partnership we have with the tribes of the Northern Great Basin, and we are here in support of their efforts. We believe AB 519 is a proactive, positive step for the tribe toward the need for their school. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Ken Higbee. I'm the Director of Special Services in Elko County School District, and I'm here in support of AB 519. Being a lifelong Nevada educator, as well as the son of a lifelong Nevada educator, I've seen the difficulties in funding schools in rural Nevada. And I've got to tell you, this is a breath of fresh air to have a mechanism for our rural schools to build schools. I would call it a visionary bill to help our schools with capital improvement. This is a legacy bill that your legacy in moving this forward is going to be felt through generations of kids in rural Nevada. For the first time ever in the state of Nevada, I have a mechanism. And so I thank you for that. I I see all the division in the world today, and funding for kids is not divisive, or should not be divisive. And so I thank you. Elko County supports Oahe, and Superintendent Anderson has been a huge proponent of the Oahe school, and we're dedicated to making this happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Morgan Biaselli. I'm here to read, with the Vice Chair's permission, a letter from Chairman James Phoenix from the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. I am Chairman James Phoenix of Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. It is a good day when fellow tribal leaders, and I thank you for recognizing the importance of the future of our Native children as expressed through this bill. In most tribal communities, we lack the population size and visibility to call attention to our children's educational needs. They deserve schools that are safe, modern, and long-lasting. Assembly Bill 519 creates a mechanism and funding for schools on tribal lands as well as for schools in other rural communities here in Nevada that truly need it. It will allow our communities to support our youth as they prepare for their futures. In closing, I sincerely thank you, Madam Chair, for your leadership in creating AB 519. On behalf of the tribal nations here in the great state of Nevada, we request your support of Assembly Bill 519. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members of the Ways and Means Committee. I am Sarah Adler, also a member of the SSGR team, and we are proud to represent as well the Duckwater Shoshone tribe. So with your permission, I would like to share testimony from the Honorable Warren Graham, Chair. Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. I'm Warren Graham, and I am proud to be the chairman of the Duckwater Shoshone tribe. I join you this afternoon to express my deep appreciation to Chairwoman Monroe Moreno and to the Hansons, and strong support for Assembly Bill 519. Perhaps you have not visited our community. It is 295 miles from Las Vegas, 290 miles from Reno, and 47 miles from our nearest neighbor community, the town of Eureka, including on unpaved roads. Even more importantly for this bill, we are 302 miles from Pahrump, which is where the headquarters of the Nye County School District is located. That is our county. This year we are celebrating the 50th anniversary for our Duckwater Shoshone Elementary School. The Duckwater Shoshone Elementary School building is over 50 years old, and since it's an old building, there are always maintenance issues, which also means most of the school is outdated with limited funding to resolve its challenging issues. I imagine this helps you realize the critical importance of AB 519 and the account to assist rural school districts in financing capital improvements. Our tribe is a community of truly native Nevadans, yet we lack the population size to allow our children to be treated fairly in terms of their schools with those in other Nevada communities. AB 519 gives us hope for our children's future and the opportunity to work with the Nye County School District to provide our children with a learning environment that respects them. With AB 519, you welcome them into this state and their future. On behalf of my community and tribe, I thank you and request your support of AB 519.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Brzezinski, here representing the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, and we are in support of AB 519 and very excited to see our fellow students at Duck Valley Indian Reservation get a healthy, safe environment in which to go to school. We also appreciate the opportunity for other rural districts to take advantage of the opportunities that this bill offers. We had White Pine School kids here today in Finance Committee talking about how they wanted to replace their 105-year-old school that they're of course, still using. So thank you. This is a good bill, and we appreciate it, and we support it. Thanks.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Michael Hilderby on behalf of the White Pine County School District. Happy to say they're a pro bono client because the money they do have should go to those fine young kids that Superintendent Brzezinski just mentioned that were in finance this morning. White Pine County School, particularly the provisions of the bill, are happy to support this, and those provisions dealing with being able to enact outside of the tax cap. White Pine County has been at the tax cap since 1997. Their voters have a long history of supporting ballot questions, but again, they're at the cap and have nowhere else to go. The school you just heard about, the two that White Pine County is hoping to replace soon, there is an appropriation in the Senate for some money. We're hopeful between the provisions of this bill, hopefully some money from SB 100, and perhaps money from the State Infrastructure Bank, and their conversations with the treasurer would help them replace two schools that are more than a century old with one combined school to serve that district's needs. Again, happy to support this bill. Thank the chair for bringing it forward, and be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Jen.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice Chair, members of the committee, Jennifer Lanahan for the record, and I'm here on behalf of the Las Vegas Paiute Tribe and the Reno Sparks Indian Colony. Thank you so much for taking the time to hear this bill and bringing it forward. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to the phone line for support, we just wanted to ask Dr. Higbee if you could just come back up to the podium. One thing we were curious about was the existing structure. I know it was an older building when it was placed on the Duck Valley Indian Reservation. I mean, and I know it's a lot to ask, but if you guys understand what your intent is to be done with that building, I think the committee members would appreciate just kind of knowing.
To be honest with you, this is a monumental task. This bill that's going to go forward, and so, in all reality, it's a building that's unsafe. That's the reality, and so probably looking at turning that over to the tribe and allowing them to use it in a manner and making it useful, and that would probably include tearing down some of the building that is not useful, that is unsafe. But yeah, I think that would be turning that building back to the tribe.
And we're not holding that to you, Dr. Higbee. We appreciate that, and I'm sure you appreciate the government-to-government relationship, and we trust everything hopefully will work out going forward. So thank you for coming back up. And so with that, I see a couple people in Las Vegas. I don't know if anyone in Las Vegas is here to testify in support of Assembly Bill 519, but we'd welcome you to the dais. Okay, it doesn't look like it. So we'll go to the phone lines. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in support of Assembly Bill 519 this evening?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 519, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Vice Chair.
Good evening, Vice Chair and members of Ways and Committee. This is Dora Martinez representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. We would really like to take this time and thank the sponsor of the bill, Madam Chair, Danielle Monroe. Oh my gosh. You know who you are. I can't pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for sponsoring the bill, Madam Chair, Monroe Moreno. We wholeheartedly think this is a common sense bill and long overdue, and we thank you so much. Take care. Hello?
Go ahead. And also one thing, if you could state your name for the record, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yes. How you doing, Madam Chair? My name is Henry Thorne with the Dog Catcher Youth Foundation, and I'm calling on behalf of Support AB 519. You know, growing up here in Las Vegas, Got to know some Indians on the corner of Orange and Main Street where their reservation was, but never had a school. And I think this is awesome for them to be building the school. And don't stop there. Don't stop with one. I think you should continue, build more schools, and hopefully the real history of their language and everything will come out and be taught at the school. And at the same time, I hope this is a stepping stone for other schools that's in the historic West Side to be also rebuilt and remodeled. So I support AB 519, anything for the kids. Thank you.
Hello?
Go ahead and just state your name if you can.
Hello, my name is Leilani Thorpe. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee for allowing me to speak. I am a descendant of the Shoshone-Paiute tribes here in Owyhee, Nevada, and I am in support of AB 519. I'm here to talk to you today about our current Owyhee Combined School, which is nestled on the beautiful Duck Valley Indian Reservation. The current school houses our future generation, currently sits on top of a hydrocarbon plume, which is an environmental health disaster. It poses a health disaster risk to every student, teacher, and community member who continue to congregate at Owyhee Combined School while the plume remains in the area. We have had many community members diagnosed with cancer, and unfortunately, one of them was my mother, and she lost her battle in 2017. She not only graduated and attended Owyhee Combined School, but she was also employed there as an aide for some years. Now, I cannot say for sure whether or not this toxic plume had a factor in her cancer diagnosis, but it very well could have contributed. Now, don't get me wrong, I will always love our current and home school, Owyhee, our home of the Owyhee Braves. The school has had many generations of family walk its halls. In my immediate family alone, there have been many generations, 4 generations to be exact. Now, not only does the danger that sits underground poses a risk, but I believe our teachers and our future students deserve to feel pride in their school. They should feel like they matter too, and getting an education is of paramount importance. Currently, the school has no heating system. I mean, I say it does, but the boiler system doesn't provide sufficient heat. And talk about a cooling system. The cooling system consists of opening a window, and that poses a risk as well when you have wasps and mosquitoes coming in which carry many diseases. I ask, how are children supposed to learn in these types of environments when we have no heating system that is sufficient and no cooling system that is sufficient? And if you would take one look at our school, you'll also see that it's a soft target for the many school shootings that happen in our nation. You walk in and there are glass doors, which is an easy way to get in. The current and future students of Owyhee Combined School need a school that can provide them with extracurricular activities such as a safe and sturdy playground, a weight room that can help the athletes to perform at their best abilities, and a gym that can actually house a weight room, as well as working hours for those students who come and play against our team. A lunchroom that they can actually eat in, because right now they're sitting in a classroom that's a makeshift lunchroom. And we also need reliable internet to provide enough bandwidth for the students so they can get their testing done without the internet crashing. But at the end of the day, our children deserve a new school, one that helps them to believe, achieve, and succeed, which is our school motto, in their studies and extracurricular activities, one that encourages them to be proud of being an Owyhee Brave. Our teachers and future teachers deserve a school that can help them feel safe and secure and be able to provide a better education to our students. Having a new school would provide pride to our whole entire community. So I ask that you make this a reality for our current and future students. I thank you so much for your time for listening to me, and thank you to the Assemblywoman Hanson. Thank you.
Vice Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. At this time, we'll take testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 519. If there's anyone here in Carson City, please come up to the dais. I don't think there's anyone here. So we'll go to Las Vegas. Is anyone there in Las Vegas wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 519? We'll go to the phone lines. Is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 519?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 519, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll now go ahead and take testimony in the neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give neutral testimony to Assembly Bill 519? With that, we'll go to Las Vegas. Anyone in Las Vegas wishing to give neutral testimony to Assembly Bill 519? BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 519?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 519, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, I'll invite the presenters back up here for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Committee. For the record, I am Danielle Monroe Moreno, and I just wanted to thank you for hearing this bill. I think you've heard how important it is, and sometimes people ask me, what do you guys do in the legislature? What is the job of being an assembly member? And I jokingly say, we do the Lord's work in the people's house. But today, and by hearing this bill, voting for this bill, we are truly doing the Lord's work in the people's house. So I just want to tell you thank you.
I'd just like to thank the chair and the members of the Ways and Means Committee for hearing statements and listening to the bill, putting together a good bill that makes sense to everybody. I think that this is a great thing. It's visionary, like Ken Higby had mentioned, and it's fixing something that happened in the 1950s that no one had to address. And I think that's what leaders are, and they confront problems and they fix them. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
I just wanted to make one comment back to you, Chair Mason. When I met with you earlier this session, I saw it in you as a leader who knew you were going to do this for your school. So I'm excited, and I guess I have permission from our chair to, I'll go ahead and close this hearing formally, but I got permission to go ahead and work session Assembly Bill 519. And so with that, I'll go ahead and open the work session on Assembly Bill 519, and we would be the motion I would be seeking would be a motion to amend and do pass, and the amendment would just be number 3 on the conceptual, which was just a modification to Section 6 regarding the establishment of a school district capital projects oversight panel. With that, can I go ahead and get a motion?
So moved as stated, Chair.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Howdegi and a second from Assemblyman Watts. Is there any discussion on the motion? With that, those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. We'll take a 1-minute recess. Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, for that and committee. Moving on our agenda, the next bill on our agenda for today is Assembly Bill 245.
And Assembly Bill 245 revises provisions governing education. We'll invite Assemblywoman Torres to the table. And I believe the Assemblywoman has a few bills, so we'll go ahead and knock out all of her bills while she's here.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Chair. For the record, I'm Assemblywoman Solana Torres, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3 in the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada. My original remark said, good morning, Chair, but good evening, Chair Monroe Moreno, and hardworking Committee on Ways and Means. I think this week you earned hardest working Committee on Ways and Means. Today I'm here presenting AB 245, which works to expand resources for victims of power-based violence across the state's education system. I'm just going to get right into the fiscal note. And there's currently no fiscal impact to the state. The amendment adopted in April, so the reprint of the bill allowed for NDE to remove their fiscal note. On that note, I'm happy to answer any additional questions that the committee might have.
Thank you so much. Are they all going to be that quick? Members, any questions for the presenter? And thank you. Okay. I wanted to make sure I had the email saying the fiscal note was removed. Not seeing any questions from the members? All right, I'll ask you to take a seat back. And I'll invite anyone to the table that'd like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 245.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Alejandro Rodriguez, Nevada System of Higher Education, and she's in support of AB 245. We appreciate working with Assemblywoman Torres on the language of the bill, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association, speaking in support of Assembly Bill 245 related to victims of power-based violence. We supported this in Policy Committee. We're here in the Money Committee just supporting it as well. We urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Serena Evans, Policy Director for the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. On behalf of the coalition, our 13 program members, collaborators, parents, and student survivors statewide, we are in strong support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kent Irvin, Nevada Faculty Alliance, in very strong support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheila Bray, University of Nevada, Reno. We are also in strong support. Thank you.
Not seeing anyone else here in Carson City to provide testimony and support. Is there anyone in Las Vegas that'd like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 245? Not seeing any. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 245?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 245, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Coming back to Carson City, is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 245? Not seeing any. Not seeing anyone. Oh, come on over. Good evening.
Madam Chairman and Committee, I appreciate what is being attempted here, having been in the classroom myself teaching, and the concerns I have are the really strong terminology, power-based violence, and there are a lot of rules already for like bullying and behavior problems. I know we should be doing better in helping treat them, but the definition in 4.3 of the power-based violence, I mean, it talks about so many things without limitation, like dating violence, domestic violence, gender-based violence, gender-based harassment, violence based on sexual orientation or gender identity, and nobody's against harassing we're not for harassing anybody, and there are things that you can do for sexual misbehavior, which is already in the statutes. And then it just gets so much more complicated. Indecent exposure, and is that violence? And are they going to be subjected to these outside agencies, and we don't know who they are, to help? It's just getting so complicated with the socialization and the indoctrination of the children instead of the basics. That's why our schools are kind of low, because we used to be in Nevada when I was here, way ahead of California. We were way up, and we didn't socialize the kids. We took care of behavior problems as they came up. I did some substituting in East LA, gang people walking in and wanting to have a fight in the middle of my class. But you deal with it, and it's so complicated now. So those are the objections I have for voting against it. And then we have the assembly and the senator and the governor and all these people getting involved as well on this new commission they're setting up. And it's just more than we need, and a little dangerous to me in that we don't know who the outside agencies are going to be helping. And it's just not clear enough. I do appreciate what's being attempted, but I don't think it solves the problem. So I would urge you to vote against it. And I know there's some other discipline bills up, and bullying they're not even enforcing. A simple thing like bullying, which isn't really violence, it is a control issue. And many of the schools I've testimony from parents, the schools do nothing about it. So this is so complicated. Thank you.
You so much for joining us
Okay.
tonight and for your comments. Not seeing anyone else here in Carson City to provide testimony in opposition. Going to Las Vegas, not seeing anyone come to the table there in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to testify in opposition for Assembly Bill 245?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 245, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony for Assembly Bill 245? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone approach the table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 245?
Callers, if you would like to provide neutral testimony for AB 245, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Sorry, this is Dora Martinez. I was trying to call in support. May I please proceed?
Go ahead. We'll move your testimony to support.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Danielle Monroe Moreno. I want to apologize for the last call. I dropped my phone. It was thundering and it startled my dog, and he was pulling. I didn't want to leave my phone behind. So now I'm in a safe place. I want to thank Assemblywoman Terrific Torres for sponsoring this amazing bill, and we, representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition, wholeheartedly support her, and we hope you all pass this bill. And thank you, Madam Chair. Take care.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll ask the presenter if you have any closing comments.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres. For the record, first, I just want to make sure that I acknowledge the work that Amanda Vaskov did, UNR student and graduate now, who worked on this bill. Second of all, I do want to state that I have worked very closely with Assemblyman Hafen and Assemblyman Hansen on a definition of power-based violence that I think is going to make everyone happy, that I will be introducing, as it is a policy amendment, I'll be introducing on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 245, and we will open the work session for Assembly Bill 245. This policy was amended in the Policy Committee. It has no fiscal notes on it as of now with that amendment. So members, we can move this bill, and I will accept a motion to do pass as amended.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd move to do pass as amended Assembly Bill 245.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Backus, a second from Assemblywoman Hadigi. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimous of the members present. Next, we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 266. The next bill for Assemblywoman Torres.
Good morning, Chair Monroe Moreno, and good morning. Good evening, Chair Monroe Moreno, and continuing to be hardworking Committee on Ways and Means. I am Assemblywoman Selena Torres, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Today, I'm here presenting AB 266, which works to expand language access plans to cities and counties across our great state. I'm happy to answer any questions relating to the policy, but for now, I'll dive into the fiscal note attached by the Office of New Americans, who would be the principal agency tasked with overseeing this work. The Office of New Americans would request an additional $188,910 over the 2023 to 2025 by NEM to coordinate and manage the creation and implementation of language access plans for local governments. This note includes $137,841 for personnel expenses. That includes hiring a program officer, one position that serves as a language access coordinator to execute the responsibilities outlined in this bill, a $35,000 one-shot appropriation to contract language access experts during fiscal year 2023 to assist with the initial implementation of the bill and coordination of local governments. In total, this appropriation would make 2.7 million Nevadans eligible to receive translated public notices in their native languages and expand the accessibility of government in 17 Nevada counties. I would like to briefly mention the associated fiscal notes from local counties and governments. We're happy to answer any questions, but we have contacted all entities who submitted the fiscal note for this bill as introduced. With the amendment adopted on April 14, 2023, a number of local governments have either removed or substantially reduced their fiscal notes. I am happy to answer any particular questions here as well. With that, Chair, I conclude my presentation. I stand open for any questions.
Thank you so much. And you did make reference to the local government fiscal notes. I don't see any amendments from them. I see one from one county. I still have a fiscal note from the city of Reno. I don't know if there's anyone in the room that would like to speak to that. But as far as the state's general fund, there is only one fiscal note, and that is from the Office of New Americans. If there's anyone here from that office that would like to speak to that. And I also have an amendment, and I'm not a proposed amendment. You can go ahead and have a seat. From Clark County. Have you seen that amendment?
Yes, Assemblywoman Torres, for the record. I have seen the amendment from Clark County, and it is considered a friendly amendment, and it is just pushing back the implementation for local governments so that they have the opportunity to go through the hiring process, recognizing that October for local governments in hiring is very quick.
And will you be doing that as a personal amendment on the floor, since it will not impact the fiscal note, or will it impact the fiscal notes?
Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, I'm happy to do it as a personal amendment on the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. And hi, we have you at the table in Las Vegas if you wanted to go ahead and speak to the fiscal note there. Good evening now.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Sharina Diastis, for the record, Executive Director of the Governor's Office for New Americans. We do have a fiscal note for a Program Officer 1, looking at all the additional tasks that this bill does. It really, I mean, the committee knows we have a very small budget, and we really cannot absorb any of these tasks, given that we have only three generally appropriated positions and one is an admin assistant. We have a lot to cover with the state. 20% are immigrant and refugees, and we have a large portfolio. So given that and how this bill outlines what is mandated for the language access coordinator, we believe that a fiscal note is warranted to give us at least one position to coordinate among the cities, the counties, and the state agencies as well.
Thank you so much. I guess you didn't have to come up. Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the presenter? Assemblyman Watts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And not sure who the appropriate person is to answer this question, but I know that we have been working a lot on language access issues, and I think we just moved forward a bill related to creating a pot of funding for the executive branch to implement language access plans. I'm just wondering, could that be used to assist the Office of New Americans in carrying out the provisions of this bill?
Madam Chair, I would like to answer, if that's okay.
Actually,
Sure,
I have the GFO, and that might be the more appropriate person to answer.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Amy Stevenson, Director for Governor's Finance Office. Through you to Assemblyman Watts.
You can go directly to the member.
Thank you. It's late too, and I do not see a problem with using that pot of money because the purpose of that was to help implement the language access plan. So if this is implementing a language access plan, I don't see a problem with it.
Thank you for that. I think that's good news.
Are we still good? There was a huddle there. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for the question. All right, see no other questions for the presenter. I'll invite anyone who's here in the audience in Carson City that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 266 to the table. Not seeing anyone. And going to Las Vegas, is there anyone there in the audience that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 266? Not seeing anyone approach the table. BPS, do we have anyone on our telephone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 266?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 266, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of this committee. My name is Catherine Nielsen. I'm the Executive Director of the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. I'm going to try and be super short. Language access is vital for people with disabilities and other accommodation needs, and this includes those who use things like Braille and American Sign Language, which are really considered alternate forms of language that maybe others have not considered. And we really hope that some of the language that specifically mentions translators and interpreters used by the county will also cover those that use languages such as American Sign Language, etc. And we also really appreciate the hard work of the Assemblywoman on language access, as I know that she has several bills addressing it this session, and we thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
One moment, Chair.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Eric Jang, ERICJENG, with 1APIA Nevada, advocating for the growing Asian American community here. I just want to say thank you to Assemblywoman Torres and Ditto on the support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
One moment, Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, here I go. Hi, Madam Chair and the committee. This is Dora Martinez representing the Nevada Disability Action Coalition. We'd like to ditto the prior callers and thank you to Assembly Watch for asking an important question, and thank you to terrific Assemblywoman Torres for bringing forward this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition for Assembly Bill 266? And I'll remind our testifiers to limit your testimony to just 2 minutes. Thank you.
Madam Chairman and committee, I might have forgot my name and I apologize. Barbara Jones for the record. And education is such a big issue for me to see where it's gone. And on this bill, on the legislative portion on the front, it compensates a student who is assigned for training purposes as a student teacher, counselor, student social worker, or trainee in a library, or certain professional charter schools can have a certain professional development training, and the course that they are requiring in here that they mention to get an associate degree, I wouldn't necessarily agree with, and they get paid, and also in some of the section, they really are not improving the accreditation of teachers. I've watched them with provisional teaching certificates until they can get up to speed. They're getting less and less qualified people, and this bill does some of that. So, again, I'm going to say no on AB 323.
So
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, but we were on Assembly Bill 266. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 266? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone at our table in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 266?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 266, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So going to the neutral position, if there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 266, I invite you to the table.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Nick Ciccone, City of Reno, for the record. I apologize for being absent earlier. I just wanted to provide clarification on our fiscal note. This will still have additional requirements for the City of Reno. I think it's a step in the right direction, and that's why we did not testify in opposition. But specifically, we did revise that fiscal note just to address the fact that the Assemblywoman had noted that we would not be liable for translations that might not be directly accurate, and specifically we will need staff persons still on that will be able to translate some of that more complicated stuff when it comes to development services, which can oftentimes be a little bit more complicated with planning. Thank you.
And with the proposed amendment from Clark County, I'm not sure if you've seen that, it pushes the effective dates out. Would that be helpful?
That would absolutely be helpful. Thank you very much, and thank you, Joanna.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Ways and Means Committee. I apologize. I was working very quickly on amendments, didn't get around to all my local government friends about our proposed amendment, but I am here on behalf of Clark County. We've been working with Assemblywoman Torres. We had filed an undetermined fiscal note on this just because we knew it was going to be a burden. We're just trying to figure out how to quantify it for you. We previously, Clark County, if we do translation, we've been relying on our court partners, but but given the fact that this has been narrowed down to our planning commission notices, Clark County, just for context, we have an estimated 200,000 notices that we send out annually on our zoning items, so we can't give that to the courts. I don't think that would be fair. So we are contemplating hiring translators. I think the funding that was discussed today and the resources that you could put into the Office of New Americans would greatly assist the local governments in coordinating and obviously building the framework that we need for translation services in the state, and the flexibility on the date will help us. So we're happy to work with Assemblywoman Torres on a floor amendment, and also in this, if this should pass, into the Senate. So thank you very much, Chair, for directing her on that in that way. And so we are neutral, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Cadence Matievich, representing Washoe County. And I would like to also express my thanks to Assemblywoman Torres for working so closely with local government to address our concerns with the bill as introduced. As amended, our fiscal impact has been significantly reduced. We will still incur some expenses. So just some updated numbers for you. For fiscal year 24, we were looking at $2.37 million, and we are down to $343,000. For fiscal year 25, we were at $1.85 million, and we are now at $858,000. So for the biennium, $1.2 million, and in future biennium, $678,000 per fiscal year. I haven't had a chance to rework the math based on the Clark County amendment, but I do think that it would likely reduce some of our expenses further in fiscal year 24. And we appreciate the additional time to be sure that when it is time to go, that we are ready to do so and to do so correctly. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else here in Carson City to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 266, and not seeing anyone at the table in Las Vegas, BPS. Do we have anyone joining us by phone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 266?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 266, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Any closing comments? Okay, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 266. And members, there's been a lot of conversation tonight about the fiscal note on this bill, and part of it can be taken off. However, there's some other issues with the fiscal note, so I'm going to turn it over to our fiscal analyst to explain some of those things.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Sarah Kaufman, Legislative Council Bureau. I would just note that the one-time appropriation of $25 million that is being recommended by the governor for consideration is very specific to state agencies. It appears that within the fiscal notes for this particular bill, that the one position for the Office of New Americans would be assisting local governments. And so that may not be an appropriate use for that one-shot money.
You did try, and we appreciate that. We really, really do. But as I was looking it over, I'm like, I'm not sure. So let me ask the official over here who knows. So members, to move this bill forward, if we wanted to work session it tonight, we would need to appropriate the money on the fiscal note so that the Office of New Americans could bring on that program officer one position, and that position would be there to assist our local governments in this transition. So to do that, we would need to amend and do pass with that appropriation. And I would accept a motion to amend and do pass as amended.
Madam Chair, I would move to amend and do pass as amended Assembly Bill 266.
We have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus and a second from Assemblywoman Hadeke. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. I will. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? If you raise your hands, I have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Kasama, and the motion does carry. Thank you so much. We're moving on. I think it's your last bill. We will open the hearing for Assembly Bill 323. 323 revises provisions relating to education. You can go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening once again, Chair Monroe Moreno and hardworking committee members here in Ways and Means. I'm Assemblywoman Solana Torres for the record, and I represent Assembly District 3 in Las Vegas, Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to present AB 323, which at its core aims to build the next generation of Nevada educators by removing financial and administrative barriers for licensure for prospective educators. For the sake of time, I will speak solely on the fiscal note of the bill currently. I'm grateful for the Department of Education for their months-long collaboration on this bill and others. Through these conversations, we were able to reduce the fiscal note by 80% with the reprint of the bill. The note reflects NDE's identification of a fiscal impact related to directing the Superintendent of Public Instruction to develop a plan to recruit educators, drafting and promulgating regulations which would require staff support, and setting the Praxis 2 and pedagogy exams, which would also require staff support in contracting with a nationally recognized organization. As such, NDE identified an impact of $2,786 in fiscal year 2023-2024 and an impact of $200,000 in the fiscal year 2024 to 2025. The department did not identify future biennial costs. Second, the Nevada System of Higher Education submitted a fiscal note concerning the bill as introduced in reference to expenses relating to the Incentivizing Pathways Teaching Grant Program. This portion of this bill was removed with the reprint of the bill, and NCHE submitted a new fiscal note concerning the first reprint of the bill, which indicated no fiscal impact. At this time, I do believe that Mr. Brisk is here from the department, or the department's here to speak on the fiscal note if there are additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And there is an amendment, proposed amendment that was presented on the 24th. That amendment affects the fiscal note?
One second.
Are you phoning a friend?
I'm phoning a friend for this one. We worked, Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, we've worked a lot on this bill over the last couple of weeks to make sure that it was ready to move out. And so I will ask them and defer to them whether or not the mock-up would affect the fiscal note.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Monroe Moreno. Craig Satuki, Interim Deputy Superintendent of Educator Effectiveness and Family Engagement for the Nevada Department of Education for the record. Based on the mock-up is what Assemblywoman Torres mentioned in terms of our revised fiscal note of $2,786 in fiscal year 23-24 and $200,000 in fiscal year 24-25. Those costs are included in that mock-up for the amended language.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Members, any questions for the presenter or the division? Not seeing any. Thank you so much. And with that, we will go to testimony in support of Assembly Bill 323.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Alejandro Rodriguez, Nevada System of Higher Education, and she's in support of this bill. We appreciate Assemblywoman Torres' work on it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Alexander Marks of the Nevada State Education Association, also speaking in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in support, and not seeing anyone in the room in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in support of Assembly Bill 323?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 323, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Coming back to Carson City, do we have anyone here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 323? Not seeing any. And not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 323?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 323, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Coming back to Carson City, is there anyone that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 323? Not seeing anyone. And not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone join us on our phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 323?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 323, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll ask the presenter if you have any closing comments. Alrighty, then we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 323. And again, members, with the amendment, it takes care of the fiscal notes that were on this bill. So I will accept. Okay, before we go to a work session, I hope Assembly Torres's phone a friend is still in the room. Do you want to ask him? You are the friend, and we have a question for you, friend.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify with the mock-up amendment for this particular bill, 3714, would the reduced amount of the 2,768 in 2024 and 200,000 in 2025 still need to be provided for?
Madam Chair, Craig Satuki, Interim Deputy Superintendent, for the record. That's correct. That's the reduced amount from the original fiscal note that we submitted on the original print of the bill. So that is our final fiscal note.
Thank you. Because with your testimony, it said it was taken care of in the mock-up that she presented tonight. So that's why we had.
I apologize for that.
Okay. So we will still need to appropriate the $202,786 appropriated into this bill to move it tonight, members. Okay? So with that, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass as amended.
Madam Chair, I would move to amend and do pass as amended Assembly Bill 323.
We have a motion from Assemblywoman Backus, a second from Assemblywoman Hodeggy. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, please raise your hand. The motion carries unanimous of the members present. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you, members. A number of the bills on our agenda are members that are on this committee, so we'll go ahead and take people who are not on this committee that don't have to be here so we can get them out of the way. And with that, we will open the hearing for Assembly Bill 301 and invite Assemblyman Hibbets to the table. Good evening.
Well, my script says good morning, but good evening, Madam Chair and members of the latest working committee. My name is Brian Hibbets, Assembly
And we are
District.
the hardest working committee, so just putting it out there.
Is Torres gone? Yeah, yes, you are. My name is Brian Hibbets, Assembly District 13 for the record. I'm here to present AB 301. As a quick background so that you know that, what it is that we're trying to do. Current existing law covers police and firefighters under what is called the heart and lung protection, and that particular NRS does not cover all police. It does cover firefighters, so we're lucky there, but it does not cover all police. So the intent of the bill is to include I'll read it to you. Include school police officers, juvenile probation officers, bailiffs, and deputy marshals of municipal courts, and marshals and deputy marshals of cities or towns for certain benefits under the Nevada Occupational Diseases Act. During the hearing in the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor, there was discussion about Clark County's fiscal note. I have worked with Joanna Jacob, Government Affairs Manager of Clark County, to decrease the fiscal impact, and her amendment that was submitted to you last night, I fully endorse as a friendly amendment, and what that will do is revise the effective date of the bill from July 1st, 2023 to July 1st of 2024, which allows that government or all local governments to properly plan and budget for the increased pool of eligible employees, and extends the eligibility to all Category 1 police officers defined under Nevada Revised Statute 289-460. This will bring parity with Clark County to cover their Clark County Department of Public Safety officers, also known as Park Police. I have also been working with the State Department of Administration Risk Management Division to address their fiscal note that was submitted at $1.8 million for fiscal year 23-24. That would be eliminated under the proposed amendment. And the following ones would actually, if we were to, their concern was wording, and let me give you the exact page on AB 301. And Section 1, Subsection 2, where it says the new language, the use of any designation of the Department of Public Safety, beginning in that paragraph. It is line 33, where if we were to remove the two words "or employee," that would then eliminate almost all of their fiscal note, because their concern is that the two words "or employee" would include any employee of DPS whatsoever, wherein the intent is simply to cover the commissioned peace officers. So that would bring theirs, using their math, that would bring that down to the only change it would give to them would be cover the 22 Capitol police officers that are Category 1, the 22 authorized positions. I don't know if they're actually all full at the moment, based on our state. I kind of doubt it. At $1,278 per annual physical, that would be a fiscal impact of $28,116 per year. And again, it kicks it out a year, so we don't have to worry about that until the 25 fiscal year. And I do have the county and the state here, so I stand for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, because when I looked at your bill, I was very much concerned that you were extending this benefit to those that were not Category 1, 2, or 3 post-certified, so it will only be for post-certified categoried officers, not civilian staff.
Brian Hibbets, for the record, that is correct, ma'am.
Okay, and you had mentioned the fiscal note from the Department of Administration Risk Management Division. Is that still the $1,819,000, or has that been adjusted? If you if it has, do you have anything in writing? I don't have it in my file, and my file could just be missing it.
I will allow them to address that. We were discussing it in the hallway while we were waiting.
Good evening.
Good evening. Matthew Tuma, Deputy Director for the Department of Administration. So yes, we were discussing with the Assemblyman just sort of our fiscal note and some of the unintended consequences as we were reading the legislation that was in Section 1, subsection 2 there, adding any employee within DPS. And so the bulk of our fiscal note was built around the 748 positions within DPS that are not sworn officer positions, and the what the potential cost liability would be for extending the benefit to those folks. If we remove the or employee and focus this only on adding the additional 22 Capitol Police officers, the Assemblyman is correct. The cost for physicals on an annual basis would go down to approximately $28,116, and then we would expect a much lower sort of benefit workers' compensation claims to come out as a result of that as well, because instead of going from a pool of 770 folks, you're going to a pool of adding 22 folks. So a marginal increase using that same math, it would be a marginal increase of additional claims, similar to how we discussed that issue on legislation before the committee yesterday.
Okay, so I am going to ask you to submit that to us in writing, so I do have it for the file. And then we can work session this bill to get it out of this committee and onto the floor. So if you could do that, that would be great.
Matthew Tuma for the record. I will submit that in writing to you guys. You'll have it by the morning.
Thank you so much. Next question. Risk management is not a general fund funded, it's fee funded. Are you able to absorb this additional cost?
Matthew Tuma, Deputy Director for the record. So similar to some of the legislation that we discussed yesterday with the risk management budget, you know, typically when there's an increase in our liability, our workers' compensation liability, that's an obligation that the state will have to pay. And so we administer that budget account as we go forward. And if there are work programs that are necessary to pay those obligations, then we go in front of IFC to pay those obligations. They're funded from reserves initially. If reserves are not sufficient, then we work with the Governor's Finance Office, LCB fiscal staff, and the interim finance committee on what a potential rate change mid-biennium would be if there are no reserves. Like I said yesterday, workers' compensation is one of those categories where we've seen some increases in expenditures recently, and have been in front of IFC pretty much every single fiscal year recently to increase the expenditure budget. We've discussed and worked on ways of increasing that baseline budget to help address some of those continuing increases in costs that we're seeing as a state, but it's a relative question about what happens in that given fiscal year.
Thank you for that. Members, any questions for the presenters or the phone a friend? All right, not seeing any. Thank you so much for the presentation. I'll ask you to take a step back, and I will invite to the table anyone that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 301. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee and staff. Rick McCann, Nevada Association of Public Safety Officers, and a member of the Nevada Law Enforcement Coalition. You've heard some really good work done by the people who had these fiscal notes. I want to give a special kudo, however, to Clark County, who you're going to hear from here, I'm sure, in a moment, for this reason. They have decided to basically backload, my word, backload their fiscal note to give themselves a chance to budget. Their word. Most people don't budget things for things unless it's something they want or something they expect. I got to give a shout out to Clark County. They expect and they apparently want this benefit for their members, for their officers, our officers. That's a partnership. And I want to be able to point out the fact that I think we have a partnership with Clark County going forward on a heart-lung situation that often runs into problems fiscally. They've done a yeoman's job. Everybody else you've heard from here today has done a yeoman's job. We think this is a bill that needs to go forward. We think it's a bill that needs to pass out here today, and well, not pass out, but pass from here. We want it to stay alive and move on to where it needs to be. This is the time for it. We believe that there's a monetary basis for it, and we think this fine committee is capable of doing so. And we support this matter completely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Good evening, Chairwoman, members of the committee. I'm John Abel, Government Affairs for the LVPPA and representing the Las Vegas City Marshals. It's always hard to go after Rick because he takes all the words. I know that we've been here a while, or you have. So, in the interest of time, I'll thank Clark County. I will thank all of you, and thank you for promising a work session. And we support the bill fully. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is David Ballantyne. I'm the Vice President of the Police Officers Association of the Clark County School District. I want to thank you for hearing this bill, and we urge your support for our members. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Matthew Caldwell, President of the Police Association for the Clark County School District Police Department. I want to thank you for hearing this bill. It's a very important bill. This could potentially save one of our members' lives. Heart and lung issues are very important. Having proper screening and diagnostics done could save somebody's life. So it's a very important bill to move forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 301? Not seeing any. And not seeing anyone in the office in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 301?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 301, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Yolanda Kanaka, Nevada resident. I wanted to thank Assemblyman Hibbets for bringing this bill forward, and I am in favor of preventative medicine. And so I'm asking for a yes vote on AB 301. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you. Coming back to Carson City, is there anyone that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 301? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone lines at this time?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 301, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So, is there anyone here in the room that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 301? Good evening.
Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno. Joanna Jacob on behalf of Clark County. I'm here in the neutral position. We did file an amendment, Madam Chair, because we've been working with Assemblyman Hibbets and Assemblyman Urick on this measure since it was heard in the Policy Committee. I do believe that our amendment does have the potential to address the state impacts as well by moving the effective date to next fiscal year so that we can budget for, at least for Clark County, the expansion of the pool of employees who would be eligible for this benefit. With the proposed amendment, should it be adopted, it will help us to address our fiscal note. Our original fiscal note was $5.6 million over the biennium. With the new amendment, should it be adopted, our fiscal liability in 23-24 will be zero. And then we are adding Mr. McCann mentioned this and Assemblyman Hibbets mentioned this because the original bill added our juvenile parole officers. They are Category 2 post officers, Madam Chair. And then we do have our Department of Public Safety, formerly known as Park Police, that are Category 1. So they are doing traditional police work. We felt from an equity standpoint for our Clark County employees that if we were extending this benefit for one category, that we need to offer it to all. So we are expanding our pool voluntarily, but for that reason, we asked for some time to budget for it. We did file, at least with the committee, what the impact would be for Clark County. So obviously it does reduce it, and we can certainly formalize that, work with Mr. Tuma and Assemblyman Hibbets on this. If we can do the amendment here, it would be a great assistance to Clark County. And I can answer questions if you like, but we're neutral right now, and I just proposed the amendment to your committee, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any questions for you, but I appreciate you extending it to all categories because I don't care if you're a post 1, post 2, or post 3. If you are a law enforcement officer, you're doing the job of a law enforcement officer, and we need to protect all of our officers. So thank you so much for doing that. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Cadence Matievich, representing Washoe County. And so we were not able to quantify in our original fiscal note an estimate on the increase in claims, so we didn't have quite as eye-catching a number on our fiscal note, perhaps, as some of the others did. But with the amendment that's been presented this evening, that would eliminate the fiscal note that we had noted for fiscals 23 and fiscal year 24. For fiscal year 25, it would actually increase ours slightly because we too had an equity issue within the original bill language. And so this would add 9 additional officers in our Department of Alternative Sentencing. I think, Madam Chair, at the original bill hearing, you mentioned that. And the fact that, over time, the way that local government staff our law enforcement agencies changes titles that weren't contemplated when the original legislation was put in place. And I think that the amendment that's been brought forth this evening would fix that once and for all. And so you may not have to see continued measures on this. And so we appreciate that equity issue. We are also neutral on the bill, and also thank Clark County for the additional time to prepare and budget. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Not seeing anyone else here in Carson City to provide neutral testimony, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on our phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 301?
Callers, if you would like to testify neutral for AB 301, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. I'll invite the presenter back to the table. No, just come back. Come back to the table.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Hippis, for joining us tonight. With the testimony on the record from Mr. Tuma, he will have that information to us about their fiscal note in the morning, and you have accepted the Clark County's amendment as a friendly amendment. We will amend the bill tonight. We'll go ahead and work session it and have that information in the file first thing in the morning, but we'll work session it tonight for you, okay?
Thank
And
you,
members,
ma'am.
you might see this dollar amount in a work session later in an IFC meeting, but
May I just add the reminder to remove the 2 words "or employee" from line 33, section 1, subsection 2.
we will add that as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So with that, we will close the hearing for Assembly Bill 301, and we will open the work session for Assembly Bill 301, and I will accept a motion to amend and do pass as amended.
Madam Chair, I would move to amend and do pass as amended Assembly Bill 301.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Assemblywoman Hadigi. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously of the members present. Thank you so much. And with that, we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 322 and invite Assemblyman Nguyen to the table.
Good evening, Chair and members of the very, very tired Assembly Committees on Ways and Means, even me as well. I really appreciate all your work on this and getting this out. My name is Yui Nguyen. I am honored to represent Assembly District 8, and this process has been quite interesting for this particular bill. We started with a 2 fiscal note that was quite out there in terms of 7 figures, but that has been corrected. Originally, the fiscal note was added by the Board of Oriental Medicine or the Department of Agriculture. That has since been removed, and I just wanted to acknowledge the Division of Public and Behavioral Health and Administrator Cody Finney, as well as their Program Manager Teresa Hayes, for their work in terms of submitting the fiscal note for the Kratom Protection Act that is quite significantly less than what was originally submitted. So I do have the 2 awesome folks here for my phone a friend, but before I pass on to them, I would pass it on to my co-presenter, Mr. David Goldwater.
Thank you, Assemblyman Nguyen.
Good evening.
Madam Chair, good evening to you and the rest of the committee. David Goldwater with Pinion Public Affairs, representing Nevada wholesalers. This properly, Kratom, as you might have remember from the policy committee, is currently an unregulated substance. We are now going to place it under regulation of the state, and it properly belongs at the at DPBH, the Department of Public and Behavioral Health. They have submitted a fiscal note. It is a fee-funded agency. This is a particularly fee-funded activity. The industry agrees with adding the proper personnel and would happily accept this fee to be regulated accordingly. Won't go into any of the policy because I know it's late and it's about the money, so I'll leave it there. There's also some amendatory language that's been submitted by Assemblyman Nguyen regarding some clarifications that the DPBH asked for as well.
Thank you. And this would be the amended language being submitted? Okay.
Yui Nguyen for the record, yes, ma'am, and we have our phone a friend standing by as well.
Good evening.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. For
If
the
you
record,
could move your mic down just a little, thank you.
I am Teresa Hayes, and I serve as the Environmental Health Program Manager for the Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health. The agency currently proposed to replace the Nevada Department of Agriculture on the proposed bill. The division currently regulates food establishments under NRS and NAC 446 and food and drug manufacturers under NRS and NAC 585. Both regulations have the intent to provide unadulterated product to the public for consumption. Thank you for listening. I'm here to answer any questions you may have today.
And your division does not have a fiscal note?
We do have a fiscal note. We submitted it as an exhibit. We would need fiscal funds from the general fund for 24 and 25, and a total of $261,172. After we stood up the program, we would be able to run the fund fee-funded after that.
But you would need the general fund now, and then it would be fee-funded?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Could you repeat the number of the general fund amount that you would need for this? I'm sorry.
So
And
for
I will
20
write it down this time.
So for 24 and 25, the total is $261,172.
Thank you. Members, any questions for the presenters or the phone a friend? You have a number of sheets for the fiscal note. In my file, you may have the same, but any questions for the presenters? All right, seeing none, I thank you so much for the presentation and the confirmation of the amended fiscal note, and I will invite anyone that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 322 to the table.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Good evening. Irvin Nelson, representing the American Kratom Association, in support of this bill. The American Kratom Association is not a trade group. It represents thousands of Nevadans and millions of Americans who take kratom for various reasons, for chronic pain relief, and also to help them stay off of opioids. And they're in support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on our telephone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 322?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 322, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So moving to opposition, is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 322? Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Hour 12 of Ways and Means. This has been fantastic. Leah Case here tonight on behalf of the Nevada Psychiatric Association in opposition to AB 322. As this is a money committee, I will focus mostly on the fiscal impact. There were some requested amendments from the Nevada Psychiatric Association that might have a fiscal impact, including additional labeling that would warn consumers that this product may be addictive in some circumstances and has been known to cause addiction and death. There is data that's been submitted from the Washoe County Coroner's Office and the Clark County Coroner's Office indicating mitragynine has been the sole cause of death in several instances here in our state. I would also add that this is a prohibited substance by the Department of Defense, so our readiness in that respect might be impacted. And then we also asked that the minimum age for this be increased to 21 to purchase this product and perhaps sell it behind the counter, so those age verifications might themselves have a fiscal component. Finally, with Medicaid rates, I know this is a strange way to go about this, but it's really the only way I could look at the state fiscal impact of this. A per-day inpatient psychiatric program or detox facility is $944 per day. A partial hospitalization program is $358 per day, and it's $139 for a psychiatric evaluation. And the average cost of an autopsy is $3,500. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony and all of those issues that you brought up. As this bill moves along the way, you might want to bring up on the Senate side during that policy hearing. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 322? Not seeing any. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 322?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 322, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Coming back to Carson City, is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 322?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Michael Hillerby on behalf of the Nevada State Board of Pharmacy. First, I'd like to thank the sponsor of the bill and the proponents for working with us. The revision language you see in the first reprint is substantially different than the original bill, and it was part of the compromise to work on creating a system that looks something like the marijuana system in Nevada. There would be a legal path and then there would be an illicit if you bought outside of that or attempted to sell kratom outside of that had been regulated. As a part of that, the language in section 9.5 sub 2 that would currently limit the Board of Pharmacy's ability to schedule the substance should the facts warrant and that go through the public process. That was intended to be taken out. I understand from Mr. Goldwater that was in the language originally submitted in Commerce and Labor and did not make it out. If the committee is entertaining some of the amendments in the opinion public affairs memo that have to do with other parts of the bill, we would ask you to consider that as part of what we did. If not, I certainly understand and we'll bring this up when it comes to the Senate. I appreciate the committee's consideration and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for that. And the amendment that was presented tonight actually had an impact on the fiscal note from the division. So yours would be more of a policy. So I encourage you to work with the sponsor to make that policy change either on a floor amendment or on the Senate side.
Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in the neutral position on Assembly Bill 322? Not seeing any, and still not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on our phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 322?
Callers, if you would like to testify neutral for AB 322, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll ask the presenters if you have any closing remarks. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yui Win, Assembly District 8 for the record. Just a quick statement. This is the first step. I know that kratom is already a legal product here in our state. This Consumer Protection Act is just a first step. The bill's not perfect. This is the first step to ensure that we put some guardrails for our communities and for our Nevadans to be able to navigate this particular product and prevent illicit activities from happening and adulterated products from harming our citizens. So I look forward to work with some of the folks have made the testimony of omitting certain things, but in interest of time, we want to make sure that we have this as a first step so that we can put in more guardrails as we work on it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We have a question for you, Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair, and I'm sorry I didn't think about this before. Thank you for bringing forward the language. It has more to do with the fiscal when it was in the other department where there was a discussion about tracking system database as why probably it sounded like there was a pretty hefty price tag. I didn't know if there was already a tracking system in place with it now moving into the Division of Public and Behavioral Health, or if there will also be a need for a tracking system with that movement into the other division. Do you know, or does the division know?
Yep, I would. Thank you, Assemblywoman. You were in for the record. I would call back my phone a friend.
Good evening, Chair. My name is Teresa Hayes, for the record. We already have a tracking system. We have the centralized licensing, inspection, and complaint system. We do all of our permitting and registrations through that, so it is already stood up. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any other questions? Not seeing any. Thank you so much. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 322. And members, you heard in the testimony hearing on the bill that the fiscal notes have been adjusted. However, there will still be a fiscal impact, and we would need to appropriate that money into the bill. And FY24 is $261,172, and the same in FY25. So could we have the clarification, because that's what we have in our notes.
Madam Chair, Yui Win, Assembly District 8 for the record. It is $121,162 for fiscal year 2023-24, and then $140,010 for fiscal year 24-25, making it a grand total for 2 years of $261,172.
Okay. We all had the same notes, so that's not how we understood it, so. Okay, members, so for the amend and do pass the amended amounts to go to appropriate into this bill for FY 23-24 would be 121, 162, and for 24-25 is $140 and $10. So with that, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass as amended.
Madam Chair, I'd move to amend and do pass as amended Assembly Bill 322.
Second. I have a motion from Assemblywoman Backus, a second from Assemblywoman Hodeggy. Any discussion on the motion? Assemblyman O'Neill.
I just want to explain my position. I was a no on this when it was in the other committee, and I'm going to stay that way.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you. I will be voting it out of committee because I believe the fiscal information is accurate, but I'm uncomfortable with the policy of it.
Thank you so much. Any other discussion? Not seeing any. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Please raise your hand. I have Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Kasama, and Assemblyman O'Neill. The motion does carry. Okay, please forgive the delay. Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod is here, and we will open the hearing for Assembly Bill 357, which revises provisions governing sexual education in public schools. Good evening, and welcome to you too.
Thank you to absolutely the hardest working committee in the building. Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno, Vice Chair Backus, and the rest of the committee. I am Shannon Bilbray Axelrod. I represent Assembly District 34 in Clark County, and I'm here to present AB 357. AB 357 aims to enhance the standards of sex education provided in our public schools. It's crucial to note that NRS 389.036 has remained unchanged since 1987, highlighting the pressing need for revision. By recognizing the importance of updated sex education standards, we are taking a significant step towards ensuring the well-being and future success of our students. To address these concerns, the Department of Education has taken the initiative to adopt the Nevada Academic Content Standards for Health, which are available on their website. The department will provide detailed information regarding the fiscal impacts associated with creating additional requirements and implementing these revised standards. I'll now hand it over, with your permission, Chair, to Superintendent Ebert, who will delve into the fiscal note and provide other insights for the bill.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Monroe Moreno, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Joan Ebert, and I serve as the State Superintendent of Public Instruction. The fiscal note that you have here is our process for bringing in our constituents across the entire state, so family members, teachers, administrators, and students into the process of developing this curriculum. Wide and broad, diverse community that we have within our state, and so with that you see the travel costs, traveling both to the southern part of our state as well as here locally in Carson City, and then also out into our rural areas. And then after the standards are developed, we want to make sure that they are implemented correctly, so we have professional development available for our educators to make sure that they're implemented correctly. And our total fiscal note for this bill is $115,000, $115,609.
And my first question for you is, would your department be able to absorb that cost, that $115,000 cost?
Superintendent Ebert, for the record, this is additional work, so we would not be able to do so.
Thank you so much. Members, do you have any questions on Assembly Bill 357? Okay, not seeing any, I will ask you to step back, and I will invite to the table anyone that is here to testify in support of Assembly Bill 357.
Hi, good Alexander. Hang on, there we go. Good evening, Alexander Marks of the Nevada State Education Association. Keeping it brief today, we're in support. Please support it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the sake of time, I will just say my name is Paige Barnes, representing the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. We supported this in the policy committee and are here to do so in the money committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Cassie Charles. I'm the campaign director with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, and we are also in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. Serena Evans, Policy Director for the Nevada Coalition to End Domestic and Sexual Violence. Comprehensive, age-appropriate sex education is violence prevention, and we urge this committee's passage. Thanks.
Thank you.
Barry Cole, B-A-R-Y-C-O-L-E. I'm in support of AB 357 and appreciate the mental health references that are in here. Puberty and adolescence is a rough time, generates a lot of referrals to psychiatry, so maybe some of this could be useful.
Thank you, Dr. Cole. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 357? Not seeing any, and still not seeing anyone in our room in Las Vegas, BPS. Do we have anyone joining us on our phone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 357?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 357, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. This is Catherine Nielsen again from the Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities. I want to make my comments brief. Sexual health and sexual education is vital for all students,
But as a reminder, it's also vital for students with disabilities. The rate of sexual assault among students with intellectual and developmental disabilities is staggeringly high, and all students should have access to education and opportunities that meet their specific learning needs. So we do support this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Maria Teresa Lieberman Parraga, MARIA-TERESALIEBERMANN-PARRAGA. I'm the Deputy Director of Battle-Born Progress, and I will also keep it short, shorter than spelling my name, but we were in support of this in the Policy Committee and now in support in the Money Committee. Please support this bill.
Thank you so much. Next caller.
Good evening, delightful Madam Chair and your awesome, hardworking, stay up all night committee. This is Dora Martinez representing the Nevada Disability Peer Action Coalition. I will make it short. I'd like to ditto my people before me and Catherine Nielsen's comment. And thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Coming back to Carson City, is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 357? I invite you to the table. Good evening. Go ahead.
You are smiling.
Always.
That's good. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Janine Hansen. I'm the state president of Nevada Families for Freedom, and we oppose this bill. We are opposed to the cost of the bill, but there are many more costs. Ever since sex education was initiated in the 1960s, we've seen nothing but increases in teen pregnancy, STDs, broken hearts and lives, and more government social services to pay for these things. We are very concerned about this bill because it essentially changes the entire way we've done it. It's anti-democratic, anti-parents, anti-children, and anti-family. It removes from the local sex education advisory committees any meaningful role, and it puts into the Council of Academic Standards for Public Schools to make the curriculum. That is essentially unavailable and unaccountable to parents and the public, rather than the local committees and the locally elected school board. We're very much against that. We're also against the fact that this bill changes who can teach sex education. Right now it's restricted to teachers and school nurses. This opens it up to others in the public, so they'll be inviting groups with agendas like Planned Parenthood into the classroom. We're significantly concerned about that. We're also concerned about broadening the subjects in it and the anti-family agenda, which it includes. One of the final things we're very concerned about is how it changes parental issues. Right now it's an opt-in. This changes it to opt-out. So parents have to affirmatively say they want their children into it. That's how we want it. We want it remaining as opt-in, not opt-out, because that encourages parents, once again, to be involved with their children, which is what we really all want. We want parents involved with their children. So we ask you to oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Kathleen Palmer, Palmer. Assembly Bill 357 refers to the Food and Drug Administration as the source of information about preventing pregnancy, but the FDA hides often lifelong harms borne by the users of hormonal birth control. When compared to women who are not on the pill, women on the pill exhibit a 19 to 37% higher risk for breast cancer. An estimated 300 to 400 American women die every year from vascular diseases like heart attacks, strokes, and blood clots that are exacerbated by hormonal contraceptives. 2 years ago, the nonprofit women's health organization Natural Womanhood, along with doctors and researchers, submitted a citizen's petition to the FDA citing the robust scientific evidence of the risks mentioned above. They asked the FDA for greater transparency and evidence-based warnings about the risks of hormonal birth control. They have heard nothing in response from the FDA on the evidence presented. Oxford Population Health recently completed a study just in March that shows the breast cancer risk declines after a woman stops taking birth control pills, but remains elevated compared to women who have never taken hormonal contraceptives. The FDA does not acknowledge these harms. I checked the website today, that's true. Breast cancer is the world's most commonly diagnosed cancer. So elevating the average teenager's risk of breast cancer through recommending hormonally based birth control should be a serious consideration for sex educators in Nevada. Please consider amending this bill to add the National Cancer Institute and the Oxford Population Health to the list of information providers, since the FDA is refusing to disclose some of these health problems mentioned above. These potential harms are of vital interest to teenage females and the women they will grow up to be. They deserve to have accurate and transparent health information presented in sex ed courses. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman and committee, I guess you figured out I'm kind of hard of hearing, but thank you for your patience. I am so against sex education in the school as it is, and I am just going to say ditto. I think they explained it very well. I'll just give one analogy how long this has started, and now it's just, the train is just rolling down the track. 30 to 40 years ago at Tahoe, a reference book in the library was How to Be a Lesbian, and very graphic descriptions for my middle school nephew. And I went to the school library and talked to him about it. You know, it just wasn't appropriate for that age level to do that. So I am really against it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And can I get your name again for the record?
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Barbara Jones.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jones.
Appreciate it.
Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 357? Not seeing any, and still not seeing anyone in Las Vegas BPS. Do we have anyone on our phone lines that would like to testify in opposition of Assembly Bill 357?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 357, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
QRRUS HOJJATY. I will ditto the previous and future commentators. I do have some alternative topics that we can educate our young people, if that's okay, I would like to share, such as the fact that many not so pleasant trends that's happening. Record numbers of women are hitting their 30s, unmarried, unpartnered, and childless. And this is a serious concern because they have passed their prime years and their fertility is going down. The family structure or family building has significantly declined over the last few decades. And what's ironic here, especially in the state of Nevada, a very small minority of young women, adults, have college degrees because that's the excuse that they constantly make. We need to encourage men and women to be good candidates, marriage-type material, in order to build strong families. And in order to build strong families, you have to have the quality, which I will discuss hopefully in another time. But other than that, I am glad this topic is being brought up. Appreciate it. Please reconsider.
Thank you. Next caller.
Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Romarino and members of Ways and Means.
My name is Jim DeGraffenreid. I'm Nevada's Republican National Committee man in opposition to AB 357 on behalf of the Nevada Republican Party. We testified in the Education Committee on the policy dangers of having the state circumvent the ability of local school boards and parents to determine the sex education curriculum of Nevada schools. Here in the Money Committee, those issues are relevant because the state is proposing to spend $115,000 to take over a process that is already being handled well at the local level, making AB 357 a waste of state resources. Although the fiscal note doesn't address future biennia, it is reasonable to assume that there will be future costs to update and maintain this agenda, just as there are current costs to implement it, so we anticipate future ongoing unnecessary expenses as well. Why do the sponsors of this bill think that they know what's better for Nevada children than the parents of their children or their local elected school board members? This bill attacks local and parental control, attempting to usurp the role of discussions parents should have with their children on health and sexuality, and instead spend state money to bring strangers with ulterior motives who do not work for the school district and are not accountable to parents into a school to have these discussions. Section 2.2 is particularly disturbing with the phrase, to provide equally meaningful instruction to pupils regardless of their level of sexual experience. Why would this be happening in public schools? In Clark County, elementary school principals are being busted in sexual predator investigations by the police. If we're going to spend state money, let's use it to focus on keeping predators out of our schools rather than discussing sexual experiences with minors who cannot consent to sex. Please vote against spending state resources on issues that are being well handled at a local level and vote no on AB 357. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hi, good afternoon. Good evening. It's been 11 hours. It's been a long day. Good for you folks. My name is Lisa Partee, P as in Paul, A-R, T as in Tom, E-E. Please vote no on AB 357, which removes control of the sex education curriculum from local sex education advisory committees under the elected school board and gives it to a council that's not accessible or accountable and is not overseen by the school district. Thus, we parents don't have a say in what is being taught. This is unacceptable. It changes to opt out rather than opt in, and it allows outside people to teach in our schools with an agenda like Planned Parenthood. It promotes anti-family and alternative lifestyles. More than anything, we should not be teaching about sexuality. Sex education teaches children, or at least it used to, the biological way of reproducing, making babies, and discussing prevention of pregnancy, STDs, and abstinence. Sexuality is an entirely different thing in itself. This indicates that the teaching is going to be based on the idea that the children being taught are currently sexually active. I am sending you an email with definitions as to what sexuality means. In the kids, it's for the quality or state of being sexual. For adults, it's the condition of having sex or sexual activity. We don't want Planned Parenthood to teach our kids about sexuality or anything for that matter. Planned Parenthood is a leftist socialist organization and thus not an appropriate entity to be involved in our kids' education. Evidently, they've been successful in being one of the leaders of sexual education in schools, which is unfortunate. But per their own website, they feel they're experts in teaching about relationships, which I don't feel their values and activism truly support healthy relationships. The nuclear family that's such a rarity these days may be demonstrative of that. I believe that we already have a committee within our school district that includes a parent, student, and others. In other words, this subject is covered, and we already have difficulty in reining in what's being taught and promoted in our schools as it is. We don't need to hand the reins over to a leftist organization that brainwashes kids as well as encourages full-term abortions. Additionally, they want access to the kids over several years of education. This isn't necessary. What we need are people to teach responsible behavior and abstinence. And ideally, I wish parents would become more actively involved in this area, but we certainly don't need a council who is unaccountable to the parents and children to lead the charge in this area. Please don't throw our kids to the wolves with this bill. I echo prior oppositional testimony as well. Please vote no on AB 357. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Good evening. My name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm the state treasurer of the Independent American Party. And we are opposed to this bill for many reasons, some of which are the bill would change who could teach sex ed to our children. Right now, the school nurse or teacher teaches our children. Who would be coming into the classroom to teach our children, and what would they be teaching? Quote, provider of health care or other person, unquote, is what this bill states. Will the taxpayer be paying these strangers to be in the classroom with our children? We currently have a system that most parents and taxpayers are comfortable with and have a say in. That is the sex education advisory committees. Each county has their own committee made up of parents and taxpayers in that county. This committee would be replaced with an appointed state, quote, council to establish academic standards for public schools, unquote, which is unaccountable to the parents and public. How much money is involved to set this council up and run it for many years? I'm sure it won't be cheap. We, the taxpayers who pay for all these bad ideas, do not want these changes. Appointed state committees, opt out instead of opt in, strangers in the classrooms teaching who knows what, and teaching subject matter that is not age appropriate. We, the parents and taxpayers, say no to this bill. Check the opinion page. That tells the story. No on AB 357. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello, my name is Michael Ryan, Michael-Ryan. I'm a longtime resident of Nevada and a Marine Corps veteran. Please vote no on AB 357, which removes control of sex education curriculum from local sex education advisory committees under the elected school board and gives it to the appointed and unavailable council to establish academic standards for public schools. This is undemocratic. It changes opt-in to opt-out, which lessens parental involvement. It allows outside people to teach in our schools with an agenda like Planned Parenthood. It promotes anti-family lifestyles. Please vote no on AB 357. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Casey Rogers for the record. You know kids are impressionable, and your attack on our kids and families must stop. There are specific topics I do not agree with, which I will discuss further. First, I quote, "When ignorance destroys culture, monsters will emerge," end quote, Jordan Peterson. One of the best ways to understand something is to examine its beginning. Alfred Kinsey, the pioneer of sexual research, studied children while he was sexually abusing them to get to his goal. He did horrific sexual experiments on them. Look up Table 34. And he, to this day, is praised and celebrated in academia. John Money, on the other hand, coined gender ideology and was a psychologist and professor at Johns Hopkins University. Both of these men were pedophiles and leaders in the current movement in sexual education for our public schools. I must say, there are 8 billion people on this planet. All of them were born from a woman, including all of you sitting in the seats today. Every person in that audience was born from a woman. Not one of you were born from a man. And you want me to allow you to educate my child in gender ideology, all of which are lies to the nature of man. And finally, please keep your pedophile, transhumanist, Marxist agenda away from our kids and families. No on AB 357.
Thank you. Next caller.
Hello. Can you hear me? Good evening. My name is Teresa DeGraffenreid, DeGraffenreid. I'm representing myself this evening as Nevada resident of Douglas County. I know that the Ways and Means Committee is a money committee, but for me, any money spent by the state to implement a one-size-fits-all policy is a waste of state resources when local school boards are already doing this work. AB 357 seeks to take away the ability of local school boards, who are most accountable to parents, to set the sex education curriculum and determine the ages that are appropriate for this information. Instead, the state will set a one-size-fits-all curriculum and, in addition, will require parents to opt out in place of the current opt-in system. We know from testimony on other bills in this session that the goal of this Legislature is to promote a statewide agenda that as many as half of Nevada parents oppose. Local control allows Nevada parents to direct local school boards to set curriculum that align with their values. AB 357 doesn't require that these subjects are taught by a teacher or even an employee of the district, but rather specifically allows these subjects to be taught by strangers with ulterior motives from outside the school system. In 2017, Governor Sandoval vetoed another bill like this, AB 348, a bill identical to this one that parents lobbied hard to defeat. His veto message stated the reasons that this was a bad idea, and these reasons are just as valid today. His message reads in part, please do not circumvent local school boards and parents' involvement with this bill. Please oppose AB 357 to protect Nevada families and children. Thank you.
Thank you. Next caller.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Moving to the neutral position, if there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 357, I invite you to the table. Not seeing any. Not seeing anyone in our room in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 357?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 357, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. I'll invite the presenter back to the table if you have any closing comments.
Thank you very much. I'll actually turn it over to the superintendent just for a couple things, and then I'll say a couple things and then let you move on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. So 2 items that I would like to point out, given the testimony that was provided. The first one is in regard to the school boards of trustees. The school boards of trustees do have to maintain their advisory committee, which does consist parents, also the addition of pupils, medical, counseling, religion, and teachers. So that still remains in the bill. The other piece we heard a number of callers address is those that are able to teach the course. Those people must be approved by the local school board. So again, I know this isn't a policy committee, but that was brought up several times that I wanted to make sure was pointed out in this bill.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
And I just would like to
Can I get you to state your name for the record?
Shannon Bilbray, Axelrod, for the record. 34 states plus DC are currently have an opt-out provision. Several states have nothing, and it just would be automatic. As far as parental involvement, I think we all know who have kids. You do everything online. You click through. So if you wanted to opt your child out, it's just as easy as, say, opting your child out of being photographed, which, comes up when you're doing that. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thank you both. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 357. And members, you heard the testimony. The Department of Education would need the general fund appropriation of $115,609 if we were to move this bill forward. And with that, I will entertain a motion to amend and do pass.
Madam Chair, I would move to amend and do pass Assembly Bill 357.
I have a motion from Assemblywoman Bacchus, a second from Assemblywoman Hodeggy. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please raise your hands. We have a nay from Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Kasama, and Assemblyman O'Neill. The motion does pass. All right, moving on. We only have one more member that's not on this committee. So we will open the bill hearing for Assembly Bill 449 and invite Assemblywoman Gallant to the table. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee. My name is Danielle Gallant, and I represent District 23. I'm going to apologize. My topic is not as interesting as the previous hearing. So AB 449 just addresses the concern that many of our constituents had about, 8-9 months ago, where there was some mistakes with the property tax. It was popped up to 8% when all those nice people are supposed to be at 3%. So this bill ensures that should that mistake happen again and we don't catch it, that our constituents can be reimbursed going back 1 year. When I originally introduced this bill, I naively thought a credit would be better. Turns out the municipalities have to pay interest on that money that they're holding, and so I've worked with Washoe County, Humboldt, and Story County. I've also spoken with Clark County as well, and has discovered that just a refund check would be a better idea. So I worked with all of them to work into the bill the process so that it would be as seamless and easy for each of the assessors and the treasurer's departments to be able to work with this bill, so it wasn't going to add anything arduous to their process. All of the fiscal notes were zero, again, because they couldn't really determine, thinking that we would have this credit, but now that it's going to be a refund, they're not going to have to do any more interest. So in the interest of time, that's it. If you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the presenter? Assemblywoman Peters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So the municipalities, they just ate the cost of the checks, of printing the checks in this case?
So when I was discussing that with them, they said there are times outside of the property taxes where they've had to do refunds. So it's something that they already have. They weren't really sure how many, so they couldn't assess what the exact cost would be. But everybody that I spoke to, they really want to be able to have it in the statute to reimburse their neighbors. I mean, these are their neighbors, and they don't want to keep money that's not intended to be held by the assessors. Mm-hmm.
Member, Assemblywoman Gorlow.
Thank you so much. And I just wanted a clarification. You'd said that this was just going to be, I'm sorry, someone moved in my way of vision for you. Thank you.
Peekaboo.
You said this was just going to be refunds, no tax credits?
Danielle Gallant, for the record, which I apologize, I forgot to do that. Yes, it would just be a refund, being able to go back 1 year. So it can't go back farther than a year, else that's going to really mess with their accounting.
Okay, so I'm just wondering if I'm missing an amendment or something, because section 1(2), it says a tax credit or refund, that the taxpayer is entitled to such a tax credit or refund. So should that part be struck out, or am I missing an amendment? I have first reprint.
First reprint. Sorry, where were you looking again? I apologize.
It's section 1(2), and it's like the last sentence, line 19 and 20.
We can look into that. I had worked with the Treasurer's Department to make sure that the wording was exactly how they wanted it, so I can double check with them.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, seeing no other questions, I'll ask you to take a seat back, and we will invite anyone that's here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 449. Not seeing anyone here in Carson City, and still not seeing anyone at the table or even in the room in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone joining us on the phone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 449?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 449? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone lines?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Perfect. So we will move to the neutral position. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 449? Not seeing anyone, not seeing anyone in Las Vegas and BPS. I am going to assume we still do not have anyone on the phone line. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you so much. Do you have any closing comments? Okay, so I will hold this until we get the answer to that question about the credit part, and then we'll look at it for work session. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us tonight. I told you we wouldn't bite. With that, we'll close the hearing on Assembly Bill 449. Moving on to the next item on our agenda, it will be Assembly Bill 249 in its first reprint, which enacts provisions relating to the use of hemp in certain commercial feed. And I will invite Assemblyman Watts and Assemblywoman Peters to the table. Good evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Howard Watts. I was hoping to get another colleague up here so we could just fill out all the chairs. But at any rate, I'm Howard Watts, I represent District 15. Glad to present Assembly Bill 249 for your consideration today. This was introduced by the Committee on Natural Resources, and the goal of this legislation is to allow for the sale of hemp products in animal feed, so hemp animal feed. This is kind of an emerging product area. So it is specifically not allowed for as feed for livestock. That is still a process that has to go through the federal government, but this would allow the use of hemp to be incorporated into feed for pets, specialty pets, and horses. Really, that's what the bill seeks to do. In terms, actually, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Assemblywoman Peters.
I'm going to jump into the fiscal note. Sarah Peters for the record. The fiscal note is related to the fees required for the staffing to ensure that this regulation can be undertaken. It includes personnel fees, information services, operating travel, uniforms fees, which are the basics for running the Department of Agriculture.
And Howard Watts for the record. One thing that did come up with the with the advocates working on this bill, it's noted this is in Chapter 587, and so this is part of the commercial feed program, which has its own dedicated budget account. And as part of the overall kind of structure set up in NRS 587, it's supposed to be a self-supported account where fees are paid by manufacturers and distributors of feed, and then those revenues help support the program activities. Currently it looks like there's not a really large operating expense from that particular category, and there's a fairly significant ongoing reserve. And so that was just a question that we were not able to get answered by fiscal representatives from the department in advance around how, first of all, the existing fee structure might help support and offset some of those costs in the fiscal note, and then also if reserve reductions may be appropriate in any way, and just get some clarification to that. So at any rate, the costs are certainly, I think, going to be necessary for carrying out this program. And with that, if somebody's here from the Department of Agriculture, would love to have them come up and speak to it. Otherwise, we'll answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much. And yes, it would be nice to have someone come up and speak to the fiscal note that was put on. It is a pretty substantial fiscal note, and I'd like to know if the department could absorb that, and because they are fee funded, and make sure they have either, vacancy, reserves. Okay. We don't have anyone here to address this fiscal note, so members, any questions for the presenters? Not seeing any. All right, I'll invite you to take a step back, and we'll invite anyone to the table that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 249.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. It doesn't sound like this is on, but it is. I'd like to thank Assemblyman Watts and Assemblywoman Peters for bringing forth this bill. This is something that we've heard, of course, from the agriculture community to be able to actually utilize this product that they have in different ways. And so this is a unique situation and something that I think would be responsive to that community. I forgot to state my name, Sheila Bray with the University of Nevada, Reno. Long day. I'd also like to just thank, we have an amendment on this bill, or it got added in, a research amendment, and that's something that I think is very also really good for us, especially at the College of Agriculture, as we continue to study the impacts of this. As Assemblyman Watt said, it's new, it's emerging, so it's important for us to complete that research. So thank you. We're in support.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in support? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone join us on the phone lines that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 249?
Chair, there are no callers at this time.
Thank you so much. So we will move to opposition. Is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide testimony in opposition of Assembly Bill 249? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to provide testimony in opposition?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you so much. So we will move to the neutral position. If there's anyone here in Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 249, I invite you to the table. Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, I am going to assume that we still have no one on the phone lines to provide testimony. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you so much. One moment. I'll invite the presenters back to the table with any closing comments. Any closing comments? All right, with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 249, and we'll move that to the wait and see stack as we get more confirmation on that fiscal note. And with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 249. And we will open the hearing on Assembly Bill 290. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Tracy Brown May for the record. Thank you so much for hearing Assembly Bill 290. Very quickly this evening, you have a proposed amendment, conceptual amendment to this in front of you to revise subsection 3 of section 1 to eliminate the 7 days noted in the first reprint, which effectively eliminates the fiscal note to 0. I am pleased to report I have a phone a friend in the audience from the DMV to reflect that, and would respectfully request that we add an additional amendment to include Assemblyman Hafen as a co-sponsor on this bill, as he was ill the day he needed to sign the paper. That's my presentation.
So I see that the fiscal note is 0 from the Department of Taxation.
Correct, Madam Chair. The Department of Taxation is what the form that you have there, and the DMV is here to testify that with this amendment, their fiscal is also 0.
Well, let's hear that. I like zeros. Good evening.
Good evening, Chair, committee member Sean Sever from the Nevada DMV. We are neutral on AB 290 and appreciate working with the bill sponsor. If the 7-day requirement for the expedited titles is indeed removed from the bill, we can remove our fiscal note. We are very short-handed at our titles department, and we're having a hard time keeping up. I think right now we're running about 8 days on expedited titles, and our fear that this would get out of control if with the increased demand. So we are fine with the rest of the bill because it aligns with our current processes. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Members, any questions for the bill presenter or her phone a friend? All right, seeing none, I ask you to take a seat back, and we'll invite to the table anyone that's here to testify in support of Assembly Bill 290. Not seeing anyone come to the table here in Carson City, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 290?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. So moving to opposition, is there anyone here in Carson City that would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 290? Not seeing any. And not seeing anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to testify in opposition?
Chair, there are no callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Moving to the neutral position. I know the DMV has already stated their position in neutral. Is there anyone else here in the Carson City that would like to provide neutral testimony on Assembly Bill 290? Not seeing any, and not seeing anyone in Las Vegas and BPS. If I understand it correctly, we do not have anyone on our phone lines, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. Do you have any closing comments? All right. So with that, we will close the hearing on Assembly Bill 290. And with all the fiscal notes removed from the bill, with the amendment, I will accept a motion to amend and do pass as amended.
Madam Chair, I'd move to amend and do pass as amended Assembly Bill 290.
Thank you. We have a motion from Assemblywoman Backus, a second from Assemblywoman Heidegge. Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing any. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any in opposition? The motion passes unanimously by the members present. With that, we have Assembly Bill 332. And 332 revises provisions related to student loan educations.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. Thank you for having a hearing today on Assembly Bill 332. I'm Sarah Peters. I represent Assembly District 24, which includes the University of Nevada in Reno. This bill is the Student Loan Bill of Rights. We heard this last session. Assemblyman Watts brought this bill last session, put a little bit more work into it, and today Amanda Vaskov, a wonderful UNR ASUN student, was intending to present on this bill. She had to go back home and is not able to meet this evening. However, I am standing in as not the exact expert, but as the second best. So AB 332 does three things. It provides consumer protections for student loan borrowers and their co-signers. These protections already exist for several other types of loans in Nevada, and establishes procedures for the licensure of education loan servicers. In Nevada, we already have licensed mortgage loan servicers, but not education loan servicers. And three, it holds student lenders and servicers accountable for engaging in predatory practices. Given that the state entered into a lawsuit with the servicer, I'm going to say this wrong because it's said a little bit different, I think, than my brain says it, but Navient, and proved these practices were predatory and returned thousands of dollars in relief back to Nevadans. This is a known issue. With the first reprint, the fiscal note from the Department of Training and Rehabilitation was removed. The fiscal note from the Financial Institutions Division is reflective of the startup costs for the bill. The agency will pull from their reserves to cover these costs. And I have sent an email into staff with this confirmation from FID. As a result, the fiscal note from FID will not be a general fund appropriation. All other fiscal notes are zero. Happy to answer any questions.
One moment, we're checking an email. All right. I did not have the email, but it is online that it appears that the Department of Business and Industry would be able to absorb the fee. Correct? Is that your understanding? Awesome. Members, any questions for the presenter? Assemblyman O'Neill.
Thank you, Chair. Make it quick. I thought there was an amendment to remove the licensing part for these financials. Was I dreaming that? I know it's late. I'm tired.
There were discussions with one stakeholder who offered to send us some language. They never followed through with sending that language, and so we have no amendment to offer today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Chair.
Thank you so much. Members, any other questions? Seeing none, I'll invite you to take a seat back, and we'll invite to the table anyone that's here to testify in support of Assembly Bill 332.
Thank you. Haven't sat in this chair yet to support. Alexander Marks of the Nevada State Education Association. We're speaking in support of AB 332. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Sheila Bray with the University of Nevada, Reno. We'd like to thank Assemblywoman Peters for bringing forth this bill and working so closely with ASUN and our student government to help ensure that these protections are out there for our students. So we're in deep support. Thanks.
Kent
Thank
Irvin,
you.
Nevada Faculty Alliance. We support college affordability, and student loans, unfortunately, have become a big part of the issues around that. So we support the bill, and a big shout out to Amanda Vasquez, who worked on this bill so hard.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else here in Carson City that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 332? Not seeing any. Not seeing anyone in Las Vegas, BPS. Do we have anyone on the phone line that would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 332?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 332, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and the committee. My name is Shelby Swartz from Battleborn Progress. In my personal capacity as a student borrower, I am currently staring down $70,000 in student loans. We are told that student loan debt is the only good debt. This is false, especially when bad actors are allowed to exploit students with abandon. And I'm not alone in this struggle. I know so many of my peers are also facing down gigantic amounts of student loan debt. Our student loan system is fundamentally broken, and no unsuspecting 18-year-old should be forced to make a financial decision that can alter the course of their financial lives forever and be at the whims of predatory loans. Thank you, and please support this bill.
Thank you so much. Next caller. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. My name is Eric Chang, ERICJNG, here with One API in Nevada. In the state and nationwide, Asian American students have the highest unmet financial needs when it comes to student loans, and research show that average low-income Asian American student at a public four-year university needs $4,000 greater than the average low-income student. This is a great bill. We want to thank the sponsor. The Student Loan Bill of Rights is something we've been advocating for, and we thank you for hearing it.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. Next, we will go to testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 332, and we'll start here in Carson City. Is there anyone wanting to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 332? We'll go ahead to Las Vegas. There's no one in Las Vegas. So BPS, is there anyone on the phone line wishing to give testimony in opposition to Assembly Bill 332?
Vice Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide testimony at this time.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead to move to testimony in the neutral. Is there anyone here in Carson City wishing to give neutral testimony to Assembly Bill 332? Doesn't look like there's anyone in Las Vegas. BPS, is there anyone on the phone line wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 332?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 332, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Vice Chair.
Hello, my name is Amanda Bosco, VASKOV. My following testimony, I'm calling late, so my following testimony will have to be resorted into support. I'm a recent UNR graduate and have represented the Associated Students in the University of Nevada, over 14,000 of our undergraduates this session. In working with my peers to bring forth this legislation, it's become clear that encountering predatory servicing and lending practice is all too common for student loan borrowers. We also know that managing student loan debt is a top barrier to seeking employment for recent Nevada graduates. Given that the federal COVID student loan payment pause is set to lift as soon as August, I have fear for the day that thousands of student borrowers will not only have to begin payments that they haven't had to make for 3 years, but also navigate working with predatory lenders and servicers for the first time. Now more than ever is the time to get this legislation on the books, and given that it comes at no cost to the state in general fund terms, I urge you to support this legislation. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Amanda, for all your work on this as well. Sorry that we did this a little late today. With that, we'll go ahead and move your testimony in support. BPS, do we have anyone else on the phone line wishing to give testimony in the neutral to Assembly Bill 332?
Vice Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Thank you so much. With that, I would welcome the bill sponsor back up to give any closing remarks, which she's going to waive. And so with that, we'll go ahead and close the hearing on Assembly Bill 332. We'll go ahead and open the work session on Assembly Bill 332, which would be, I would be looking for a motion to do pass as amended. Thank you. I need a second. I have a first from Assemblywoman Howdegi and a second from Assemblyman Watts. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Thank you, Vice Chair. I voted for this, or I voted yes in Commerce and Labor to get it out, but I was under the understanding that there was going to be an amendment about the licensing part. I will vote yes again today, reserving the right and looking forward to seeing that amendment comes forward before we have the vote on the floor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. With that, all of those in favor of supporting AB 332, say aye. Those opposed say nay. And so for noes, I have Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman Hafen, and okay, and that's it. Thank you. The motion passes.
If you are here for Senate Bill 440, that hearing, unfortunately, that is being rolled till tomorrow. Yes, unfortunately, because members, we have more bills to hear and work session. So Senate Bill 440 will be heard tomorrow. I'm going to say about 9, 10-ish tomorrow, that time frame. AM. And I apologize. I am so sorry. Members, you still have work. We have some more bills and some work sessions, so just give us 5-minute recess, grab a bite to eat really super quick, go to the restroom, and then we'll start up with this other group.